Okay, well, good afternoon again. Welcome to the special work session, Las Cruces City Council. Today's Monday, March 16th, 2020. It's approximately 4:45 p.m. Before we begin, the one item on the agenda, Councilor Bencomo asked if she could start some opening remarks. So, Councilor Bencomo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I come from a place of a work where we always have some sort of grounding or reflection before a meeting or whatever, and city council has been a little different for me in that regard, but given the situation and given the circumstance, I thought I would bring a little piece of that today, especially given that people are scared and feel anxious, and so I just want to read this. It's by a really great author. Her name is Valerie Carr. She says, "What I wish for you is stillness. The cacophony of voices, the blistering pace of the news, the relentless barrage of commentary kills the root of our own wisdom, our ability to think clearly. It drives us to act on fear and panic, to hoard, to ban, to isolate, to self-protect, to act on racist impulses. But this is a time to gather the facts and then get quiet and summon our deepest wisdom. And let that wisdom lead us, for we have difficult choices to make in the coming days. This pandemic will test who we want to be as a people. Will we succumb to fear and self-interest, or will we double down on love? Will we let social distancing isolate us, or will we find new ways to reach out, deepen our connection, step up community care, and tend to the most vulnerable in our communities? I believe this is a time to love without limit. This is a time to see no stranger. In doing so, we gather information for the kind of world we want, where no one is uninsured or disposable, where our policies and public institutions protect us all. And if panic or grief or rage seizes you suddenly, it's okay. It means you are alive to what is happening. The work is to breathe through it. It becomes a dance. To panic, then return to wisdom. To retreat, then find the courage to show up with love anyway. I spent all day in fear, but tonight I got quiet enough to hear the wise woman in me, and she said, breathe, my love. Like any long labor, we are going to get through this one breath at a time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor, for those really touching words and words of wisdom. Thanks. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Interim City Manager David Maestas. Start us off.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilor Bencomo, for that reading. Appreciate that. Mayor and Councilors, the discussion before you will be a summary of the changings that are taking place within city operations in consideration and in collaboration with the Governor's declaration of a public health emergency. City staff has been working this last week and over the weekend with the adjustments being considered to be put in place with the Governor's public health order as the foundation for considering the services to modify, along with maintaining critical essential services such as utilities, fire, police, streets and traffic operations, and service to our vulnerable population. We have been in close contact with the Department of Health, partnering government agencies, and the Office of Emergency Management, where we are part of a multi-agency coordination group. We are also ready with a designated incident commander in the event that the need arises. Lastly, to answer Council's questions, we have considered and again worked over the weekend with several department directors, legal and human resources, and we have developed several policies for employees so that they can have leave and remote work assignments to limit staff contact while still maintaining services as necessary for our constituents. And with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Lynn Gallagher, Director of Quality of Life, who will go through the presentation for us, and then we will have several department directors and other key staff to answer questions that you may have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Lynn.
Mayor, City Council, Lynn Gallagher, Quality of Life Director. We are the first to present, and I do know that there are a number of very important partners from the community who will also have things to say specific to their response and their efforts in the community. But we thought we would start off with a little bit of just flow for the group. So the coronavirus summary originated in and around China in about December of 2019. January 30th of this year, the World Health Organization declared this to be an outbreak because of its fast growth. On March 11th of 2020, the World Health Organization finally declared it a pandemic. This slide that you see before you is the New Mexico Department of Health's emergency response page where they put out all of their critical information. And just to give the members of the community the impact of how quickly this virus is spreading, we already have a change in these numbers, and I updated this slide at about 1 o'clock or 1:30, but we now currently have 22 confirmed positive cases. In addition, the CDC is no longer presumptively verifying those results, so the website has been updated on the Department of Health. So there are 22 confirmed cases in New Mexico, 14 in Bernalillo County, Sandoval County, 2 members, 3 in Santa Fe County, and 2 in Socorro County. In epidemiological terms, this virus is fast spreading and it has an upward trajectory. In order to flatten the curve, you hear that a lot, you need to act swiftly and promptly and take the Department of Health's recommendations seriously. One of the important things is that we operate under a central public health system and under a central emergency preparedness system, which gives us an advantage that information can best be placed where it needs to go. So in order to stop this spread, there are many things that need to take place, not only at the city level, the county level, the state level, but in an individual level. One of the things I see is I see a lot of people doing the fist bump, but then I see them handing over pieces of paper that they've touched. Virus spreads, virus sticks to surfaces. So there are a lot of things that we need to do. Coronavirus in New Mexico continued. It was made an emergency under Executive Order 2020-004 on March 11th. The New Mexico Department of Health also ordered a limit on mass gatherings on March 12th, and the New Mexico Public Education Department closed all K through 12 schools for 3 weeks. In addition, college and universities followed suit. And currently, state agency directives have been told to limit face-to-face contact as much as possible. And in addition, the CDC has also recommended a 50-person limit to gatherings. What I'm doing is I'm going to present what the departments within the city are doing regarding this response and our ability to contain the virus. The Public Information Office, I would say, has done one of the most amazing jobs that I have seen in my tenure in working with public health emergencies. They have provided a COVID-19 NMDOH forum at City Hall, which is a wonderful opportunity, and that has been replayed over and over again for the general public. It is streamed live on March 5th. They initiated hot topics for the COVID-19 on the website homepage on March 11th. They initiated an alert center on the website homepage for folks to go to and get an organized central location for city sites and information services. They have also produced video messages from Mayor Miyagishima on March 12th that was published and has been shared over and over again. And then they have acquired a URL link as per the recommendation, covid19lascruces.com on March 16th. The Facilities and Public Works Department, they are placing waste receptacles and signage at restrooms in City Hall. Staff is assessing additional locations elsewhere. They have implemented additional disinfecting protocols throughout all city buildings with a focus on City Hall and senior centers. They are staffed by our custodians. They are working with our custodial contractor to implement changes in their processes and procedures at contracted sites and using state-of-the-art hospital-grade treatments for surfaces, door handles, public areas, etc., as well as keeping common doors open. In our Parks and Rec department, as I go through these slides were created prior to some of the more recent changes, and so at the end I will give you what our current recommendation is that would be what we are doing following this work session. So as of right now, in Parks and Rec, all teams are on hand and on deck. The recommendation is that all Parks and Rec services that are being provided will be closed at the end of this work session. The current regular hours of operation for the administration office, the parks office, Keep Las Cruces Beautiful, and juvenile citation programs have been taken into consideration, and those closures and information on those closures will be forthcoming. Parks and Recreation continued. The following have been suspended until further notice: all practice, league play, and tournaments, all youth adult programming, the fitness center, the land and the water facilities, special events, and then rentals of the recreation facilities. Also, the facilities that have closed to the general public: East Mesa Recreation Center at 5589 Porter Drive, the Frank O'Brien Papin Center at 304 West Bell. The facilities that currently remain open but will be closed following this work session are Freninger Swimming Pool at 800 Parkview Drive, with their current regular business hours, and they were limiting at the time prior to this work session to 50 or fewer swim members. Again, another facility is Meerscheit. Meerscheit will be closed following this work session, but Meerscheit's current hours of operation, again, limiting the number of persons that are entering the facility. And then the Regional Aquatic Center, again, will be closed following this work session. Parks and Recreation staff are maintaining diligent efforts to supervise teams, and they meet weekly to discuss issues, concerns, and to make necessary adjustments. They have created a text messaging group to communicate daily about developments. They have safety protocols and precautions, placing signage on all facilities and implementing additional cleaning protocols throughout their facilities and in their workspaces. Team member precautions are providing all necessary cleaning supplies, following up with each other, and providing reminders and tips for health and safety. They are communicating with customers on a regular basis by posting information on Facebook page, sending out email blasts via eTrack registration software, emailing text to rentals and facility parks, emailing and texting to league associations and instructors, and emailing text to Parks and Recreation Advisory Board members. Communication to customers about refunds. They are providing information about how to take refunds and how they can do that via phone. And they work to either reschedule an activity or to provide some sort of credit to be used once that we are back under regular operating hours. In the Community Development Department, the administration, the one-stop shop in planning and community improvement will continue under normal business operation, but with heightened protocols in place. Online communications to be emphasized, with flex schedule to be extended on an as-needed basis. All public meetings with boards and commissions are being conducted as necessary via interactive video audio communication, and then document intake by online or in person, single open counter at room 1158. And then the community development contact for the administration office is 575-528-3340. Our Economic Development Department will continue under normal operating hours. Their main line of operation is 575-528-3477. Donald Bustos is the business concierge there, and his contact information is listed on the screen, dbustos@las-cruces.org, and his phone number is 575-640-3776. They have provided some helpful contact information. The Small Business Development Center can be contacted for information regarding assistance that can be provided to the community, 575-527-7676. And then the U.S. Department of Small Business Administration is also an area to contact related to disaster loan programming. And then the New Mexico Economic Development Department, LEDA 0% interest rate loans, and you can contact Christine Logan, and the number is listed, or Mark Roper, again, information is listed. And then for business guarantee loan program through lenders, i.e. banks, CDFIs, and credit unions, you can go to gonm.biz/about-us/COVID-19-response. In addition, the state's Economic Development Department has a wonderful link to for amazing, they have actually created a toolkit for businesses that can be accessed through the State of New Mexico's Economic Development Department. New Mexico Workforce Solutions, which is unemployment reduced hours layout aversion. You can access that information at www.jobs.state.nm.us. And then obviously, the New Mexico Department of Public Health can be contacted at the numbers listed. The last number, the 1-855-600-3453, is a number that people should memorize. 1-855-600-3453. If you exhibit symptoms and have been in an area that you may have been affected, that is the number that you call prior to going anywhere. 1-855-600-3453. Memorize it. Fire Department. The Las Cruces Fire Department is postponing tours and events at stations, daycares, and schools. The next week's tours and visits have already been contacted to inform those members who are planning to attend. Safety glasses and gloves are required on every EMS patient contact, and N95 masks shall be carried by personnel in case needed during any calls, and guidance remains the same on patient contact. If pre-arrival information is given that the person has COVID-19 symptoms, limited number of crew members will make contact. Only the number of personnel needed to do the assessment and treat shall enter and deal with the patient. In addition, if contact is made with a patient that is experiencing symptoms related to the virus and may have traveled or contacted someone who has traveled to an affected area, BC Mouchette shall be notified immediately. BC Mouchette is our designated infectious control officer. And documentation shall include who made the contact, level of PPE worn, and then the patient presentation. ER shall be notified of any symptomatic patient when transported, and all documentation shall be reported immediately to the Department of Health, as is their requirement under this state of public health emergency. Police Department. Uniformed patrol officers take precedent, patrols take precedent and will continue. Situational response is planned. A triggering event will determine the delivery method of services. SROs are assigned to patrol, and other reassignments and schedule changes may be possible. Assistance from the law enforcement partners as needed. In our Utilities Department, the Utilities Department is prepared for and committed to the continued delivery of gas, water, wastewater, and solid waste services without interruption. Plans are in place for utility staff to respond promptly to utility customer needs. Customer Central and billing are ready to assist customers that may be unable to pay their utility bill due to this emergency, and affected customers should contact Customer Central at 575-541-2111. For the Quality of Life Department, currently our public transportation and dial-a-ride services remain operational until further notice. We have enhanced all of our cleaning protocols, not only at the Intermodal Center, but on all of our buses. We have instituted and published a free fare for the duration to reduce person-to-person exposure. Anyone needing public transportation can take it for free of charge. Our dial-a-ride and senior transportation is being coordinated with clients as necessary. In addition, our dial-a-ride service is also being utilized to help deliver meals to the seniors that usually had taken the bus for their meal site service. Our senior programs, we have closed and canceled all programs pursuant to the Aging and Long-Term Services and Department of Health's recommendations, except for the delivery of congregate meals via drive-through or pickup delivery system. And we are still providing the home-delivered meals, and the drivers and all of our staff are taking those additional protocols to mitigate any person-to-person contact with our most vulnerable senior members. Our congregate meals started today, and I took a drive and went through all of them, and people were very orderly, and I want to thank Public Works and our partners and law enforcement who were there to help make sure that everybody got through there very safely. Our case management work is taking place via telephone, and we are also working and coordinating with the fire department to utilize their mobile integrated health if that may become necessary. Our library Staff has initially committed to stay open. However, we are getting more and more information that libraries throughout the state and throughout the country are closing. One of our concerns becomes the vulnerable population that uses it to get the predominance of their information. Some of the strategies that we have taken as of 2 weeks ago, we changed the format of our computer terminals so that they met the level of being away from each other. And we heightened cleaning protocols. We are having some issues finding replenishing of our cleaning supplies, but that's starting to slowly come in. But we have canceled all programming and all public events. And after work session today, we are going to move forward to close the library to services until further notice. We have also promoted online ebooks, books by mail, and online material and websites that are available free of charge to the community and through our Thomas Brannigan Memorial Library service, online service components. And we have eliminated late fees and are allowing online renewals for book subscriptions. As of the end of this work session today, for our museum system, pursuant to the governor's new directive, we will be closing all of our 5 museums and the cultural center. So they will be closed. Because we house live animals, 2 of our staff members will continue to come into work to make sure that the safety and security of our animals stays high. But we have also canceled, as of last week, all of our programs, public events, and private meetings. And we have been putting out a lot of good information and online resources, particularly as families are staying home with their children. With that, I would stand for questions unless you want to hear from the community. I would point out that this is the very first photograph of the isolate of the virus that was taken of the patient 0. I found it interesting.
Thank you, Lynn. Usually how I do it, I'll ask council if they have any questions of you, and then we'll go out to the public, but I'm going to let Interim City Manager David Maestas talk first, and then we'll go to the council.
Could she put the slide up that had the hotline, or not hotline, but the health department telephone number that we have to memorize?
600. Where was it?
All right, David?
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity to update council. As Ms. Gallagher pointed out, things have been changing quite rapidly, and we had to work this morning on some additional changes compared to what was on the slide. So I would like to be able to read off to council our most recent press release that we plan on sending out shortly after the discussion that we have here, and it will give the updated changes. For example, all public input meetings that had been scheduled at City Hall are now canceled. That would include general obligation bond projects, Veterans Advisory Board meetings, and such until further notice. City operating facilities that are changing as well. Thomas Brannigan Memorial Library, we propose to have that completely closed. Recreation centers closed as well, to include the Regional Aquatic Center. Senior centers, as Ms. Gallagher pointed out, closed, but we will continue the meals there. And then parks will remain open. Restrooms at the parks will also be open. However, we will be encouraging the public not to congregate in large groups at these parks. And then she updated you well on the transit system. And then finally, for utilities customers, we are encouraging them to use other methods to pay their bills, because we will effectively have City Hall closed to most public access, except for those people that do have to come in. We are working on a drop box potential. And the same goes for the permitting at community development. We are decreasing the access there. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Okay, we have Councilor Vasquez. You have questions of Lynn?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Gallagher. A few questions here regarding staff who get to stay home, non-essential staff. How is that determined in each department?
Mayor, Councilor Vasquez, each of the departments has been, under our city leadership, has been asked to provide a draft of a continuity of operations plan and to strategically identify who are essential and who are non-essential staff, who can work from home, who can provide some of those services virtual.
Okay, so each respective department head provides recommendations to administration to make the approval of that plan?
Mayor, Councilor Vasquez, that is correct. All last week, directors for each of the departments were developing their plan based on the tiers, what we would call essential personnel. That means people who have to come to work, to their work site to do their job. Those who can do their work from home, and then those who are going to be out in the field but are essential to have to be there in the field. So we put together those plans, and with that, we also put together policies on their ability to remote work from home.
Thank you. Is there consistency across departments in terms of what is considered non-essential? Because I could figure different department heads having perhaps different definitions of essential.
Mayor, Councilor Vasquez, what we did with each of those was, as the departments turned them in, it was reviewed by a committee approach to assure, and that committee was made up of members from the Office of the City Manager, including legal and HR, to assure that we were being as consistent as possible. With anything and any type of policy that you have, there might be some exemptions. If we do have those have to be documented and justified as we move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Maestas. I appreciate that. That answered my question on that end. Just wanted to make sure that we're erring on the side of caution and making sure that as many staff that don't have to come into work, aren't at work, right? If it's an issue of customer service, for example, I think our customers can perhaps, if it's not an essential service or an essential question, I was thinking about economic development or some of these other departments that can be on hold. Staff don't have to be there answering phones if it's not related directly to an emergency situation that they shouldn't be working. So thank you for that consistency and the legal review on that. I appreciate that, Mr. Maestas. In terms of the convention center, I know you didn't mention that, but assuming convention center is closed and all events have been postponed as well?
Mayor, Councilor Vasquez, yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. And then how about Visit Las Cruces? Will their offices be closed after tomorrow?
Mayor, Councilor Vasquez, their offices are closed. However, their phone information system and their online information system is important to be able to be
Sure.
active, but it's closed to the public.
Okay, very good. Are there other options for that kind of call forwarding for employees to be remote and be able to have calls to official city numbers be rerouted to their cell phones or home phones?
Mayor, Councilor Vasquez, I think that I would say that the city has done a remarkable job in looking and identifying that, and already messaging our online platforms, our telephone hotlines that they can call. There's a plethora of information that we gave early and often that I think that was looked at quickly.
Okay. Hope we can maximize that as well. In terms of the transportation system, immediately I've just become a little wary, right, of keeping transportation lines open because it's a fast way to transmit a disease if you're going from one side of the town to the other, with folks then spreading to different stops. But I also know how critically important it is for people to have public transportation, especially to get to a doctor or to get groceries. So are there any other best practices that you've seen from other municipalities in terms of how you limit the spread of the disease and keep public transportation open?
Yes, we have looked and been in partnership and communication with our FTA partners under the Federal Transportation Administration, and they are giving us guidelines for how we interact. Part of the reason why we went to a free fare system is we're not dealing with the tokens, we're not dealing with giving out change, we're not making that constant contact. We are cleaning the buses more frequently. It becomes in an emergency, you really have to think about those critical services. Mm-hmm. And if you look on here, it says stay home. Mm-hmm. The website says stay home. You want people to stay home. However, there are people who are dependent on public transportation, even to get medicine and to get groceries. And so I think that we need to be prudent in staggering the approach for a public transportation system.
Sure.
Seniors, our dial-a-ride and our para-transit system Our persons living with disabilities have no other option, and if we completely say we're closed and an emergency for them rises, that cost to the city and to the state becomes exponentially higher by having to call 911 to go pick up a prescription. So
Absolutely.
it's weighing that and saying, when do we minimize services? Some of the things we've been looking at are route headways. Do we expand our route headway and just say it's going to take you a little bit longer to get where you need to go, but you can go there? What do we do at our intermodal center as far as people coming in and coming out? That can easily be an area where 50 or more people can congregate. So we look at that every day.
Great, thank you, Ms. Gallagher. I think adding some context to that in the press release that goes out to the public that mentions our public transportation is still open, but with the caveat of, this is what the city is doing to maintain the buses sanitized, and also please only use it for essential services would be a good way to communicate that, I think, to the public as to, for them to have both the confidence but also not use public transportation unless they absolutely have to. You mentioned libraries and museums would be shut down starting tomorrow, except for the library, for the computers at the library, is that right?
So one of the things we were looking at is whether or not we keep a portion of the computer lab available on a limited basis in the event that people needed to get it for information.
Yes.
That is yet to be determined.
Okay.
As of today, our recommendation is that we close it
Okay.
until, at least until April 9th, based on the governor's executive.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you being mindful of that. In terms of the utility disconnections, I'm hearing some mixed messages because I had heard that we were suspending all disconnections, and on the presentation I heard that if you have a problem paying that you should call. So Dr. Garcia, what are...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councilor, effective this morning, I asked staff to suspend disconnections.
Okay, so let's...
First, we had proposed that customers call in and go through that effort, but given the severity of the situation, I administratively asked staff to suspend effective this morning.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. I appreciate that. So let's, make sure that information is relayed as well so that we're not having folks call in, right, as opposed to having that peace of mind that there will be okay. Definitely think that should be sent out with the press release or even as a standalone. I would also advise to use the system-wide text message system that the utilities has developed to send out perhaps a similar message to customers to let them know if that's a possibility.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Councilor Vasquez, the Everbridge system is going to be very useful in this situation, yes.
I think so.
We tend to use it.
Unfortunately, this is probably a great reason to use the emergency
Yeah.
system. So, okay, thank you. And then questions around Community of Hope, I know we have several presenters here that would represent the community, but those services to the population of folks who get services there. Is there anything to report on in terms of changes at Community of Hope at all?
Mayor, I would offer that as an opportunity for them to come and present on what they're doing, if that is the wish of the council.
I have just a few more questions, and then I think that'd be great. In terms of the website, COVID19lascruces.com, thank you so much for getting that up and running so quickly. I think the aggressive public education we really need to lead in those efforts, I think, as we've been doing pretty good. Do you have a timeline of when that website might be up and what we could expect to tell our residents they could see there?
Mayor, Councilor Vasquez, I will have Udell Vigil come and address that.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Councilor Vasquez, to be specific, when you say the website, are you talking about the URL that we acquired to take people to the website that we already have?
Yes, so I know the website perhaps will point to a page on the city's existing website, but I know there's a whole bunch of content that needs to be populated on that existing page. So I guess both of those things, when can we expect to redirect to that page? And then when can we expect to have that comprehensive content included in that resource?
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So we acquired the URL today. It could take up to a few hours, so it might actually be available now. As soon as it is, we'll start redirecting people to it. As far as the populating the content that you're referencing, we're going to have a meeting tomorrow to plan out how we're going to do that and how we're going to assign it out to everybody so we can start populating it. We can do it as early as tomorrow.
Okay.
But we'll try to get a more firm deadline as to when we'll have everything that you're looking for done.
Thank you, Udell. I really appreciate that. I think for the ease of, information and getting it out fast, I personally wouldn't advertise the website until all the content was populated, because then you'll get folks going and saying, I didn't find the resource here. But that information that is kind of a compilation of both local, what the city's doing, what the state is doing, what feds are doing, what's assistance for businesses, for families, all that. I would say just as easy and simple and basic as possible, bullet points with links to avoid, delaying, without any fancy gadgets and features, that kind of thing.
Very good.
But thank you. I think our residents will appreciate that.
Well, you and Councilor Bencomo initiated that, so thank you for your help.
Not a problem. Thank you, Udell. And then lastly, the last question I have is related to I've talked about this in prior, but in terms of the 50 people per state or per location guidelines that the governor put out, how are we enforcing that? Is there anything more that we can do to ensure that, people are following that, or businesses or gathering areas? Is there anything that we're doing proactively or we can do to enforce that?
One of the things that in the governor's message was for buildings and for general businesses is to limit it to 50% of your occupancy. And then the CDC's recommendation is to reduce that to less than 50 people.
Okay.
So there are a couple of ways that communities can do that. You see if your occupancy is under 50 people, then you can talk about how you do that. Some people move tables. I've seen people put signs on the door. The council chamber is a good example and a reflection of our being good stewards of the public health emergency by having notifications. We are a globally online community now, and so messaging through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of those services become a good, important way to say the first 50 people can come in. Some people talk about giving out tickets. Some people talk about, but you also want to be mindful of the populations that you're serving.
Thank you, Ms. Gallagher. I'm particularly concerned about gyms and churches. And so the membership at gym, I try to go every day. And so, having not to go is, I can go run outside, do something else. But, I know especially in the early morning hours and in the afternoon, I'm not sure that those gyms are going to be at 50% capacity, because folks have, it's part of their routine, right? Part of their ritual. So concerned that the gyms and churches are going to continue to be over 50% capacity unless we do something about it explicitly. Is that something that your staff has discussed or thought about?
From a Parks and Rec perspective, I know speaking with the director, Sonia has indicated that their facilities, people do want to come to the gym. It's just not highly recommended. However, one of the things that they're doing proactive is saying what is available online. I think that's a good place to start. I know my sister lives in El Paso, and she frequents a gym, and it is closed, but their gym has given them certificates to come back once it's over, and they've also put some of their instructors online to teach some of the classes. It's one of the things we're doing in the museum around mental exercise, trying to record certain things so that people have access to our services online.
Mayor, Councilor Vasquez, if I could also, we have talked about that in our briefings and our discussions. That is something that we have to see from a legal standpoint, what opportunities we have, because it sounds to me like you're talking about private gyms, areas that we don't have jurisdiction of how they carry on their services, but we would have to take a look to see if we have potential to work on those ordinances.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, no other municipalities have, shut down, for example, restaurants limit them to takeout, probably places that have higher cases of the virus in and around them. But I would want us to explore all of those options, including looking into now, if we can, at the city level, at least shut down gyms temporarily. To me, one of the really important things we could be doing now and thinking about that now if it's legal.
Mayor, if I
Thank you.
may address that, I guess I would like to, not dissimilar to our conversations many months ago about the asylum seeker issue, a lot of these decisions under this emergency are state-related and need to stem from those authorities. I would just caution us to make directives that fall outside of line of what our state is requiring us to do.
I totally get that. I will just say the state is probably being more aggressive than the federal government because the state felt like the federal government wasn't doing enough. And so I would just want to keep our options reserved with the powers that we have as a local government to be able to execute on a plan that we think is best for our community. But totally agree that, the state obviously has the experts, the Department of Health, and a lot of really folks making good decisions, but want to do everything we can to maximize the protection of our citizens. So those are all my questions, Ms. Gallagher, for now. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Vasquez. Very good questions. I will just say, and I think kind of along the lines of what Lynn was trying to get at, and I've read the emergency action that the governor put forth, and it specifically excludes businesses on the 100 number. So, but I think if the council might be able to implement the distance, so we'll look at that as well. Two things real quick. One, and I'm sure Rico or his chief operating officer is going to talk about this, but along the lines of consistency with the city of Las Cruces utilities, they're also going to suspend any service disconnections as such. And then two, if I remember correctly, when we moved in here, our phone systems are what they call VoIP, Voice over Internet Protocol, and they're Cisco systems. So if and I'm not 100% certain about this, but I seem to recall this, if one of the employees has has internet service at home, they could actually plug into the internet, and the phone will ring, because that's its own little computer, will ring at their house, so that you don't have to do too much configuration. So we can maybe have IT look into that, because that was one of the neat features of that phone. Was the city was worried, if they could take the phone to the house and we wouldn't know they were there. So now it might come in handy that they're at the house and they don't have to do a whole lot of reconfiguration. So I just want to share those two things. Okay, Councilor Bencomo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Ms. Gallagher. Thanks to the whole city staff that's been thinking about this 24 hours, 24/7, and you all have been doing a really great job. Seriously, thank you. I know there's no easy decisions right now, and similarly to the schools, I think they've been doing an incredible job acting really decisively, so I really appreciate all of you. Couple questions. In terms of, so I think it's great that we're pushing a lot of things on social media. I think right now that's where a lot of people get information. I want to make sure that everything on social media is also in Spanish. I know that we're trying to send as many things out as possible, but social media and posts have not been necessarily in Spanish, so I want to make sure that we do that. I don't know if this means assigning someone specifically in this moment to work on translating things for the foreseeable future, like a specific person who's translating. Instead of just trying to find random folks who can translate different things, assigning someone specifically to the translation of information, documents, etc. Senior meals, is this being expanded? Is the program being expanded to be able to serve more people?
Mayor, Councilor Bencomo, our current senior meal program is we are taking all those assessments online and providing services in a broader perspective to the seniors that are wanting that service. And then we are also traveling and contacting additional seniors to let them know that the takeout service is available, and they may prefer to just come and pick up a meal rather than
Delivery.
come, yeah.
Is there a number for seniors to call who want to request service?
Yes, ma'am, there is, and I remembered that number, but I can't, it's 827.
575-528-3000.
528-3000. Great, thank
And
you.
I'll look up another number.
Yes,
It's
there's
the-
a number to schedule. That's the main number to the senior center. There is a specific telephone number for scheduling their meal, and it has been attached to all of our senior programs announcements, which are all produced in English and in Spanish.
Great. And so if the number of seniors calling in to request this meal service grows exponentially, are we ready for that? Do they have enough
We do.
resources? Okay.
We do. We have ordered several. Some of the meals might look more like a lunch, a sack lunch, than the full hot meal that they're getting today. But we have been working closely with our partners at Aging and Long-Term Services and the non-Metro AAA to make sure that we have the kinds of nutritious meals that they are allowing us to provide during this time.
Great, that's awesome. For those people who don't have access to social media, to computers, can we send some of these things out in utility bills? Some of the information, perhaps some of these phone numbers, the 1-855 number that you mentioned, I think utilities is already prepared to send out information regarding payment options and that kind of stuff. But whatever we can send out to the most amount of people possible that might not have access to online tools.
Mayor, Councilor, I'll have David Dollahan specifically address that.
I was going to answer the question about senior programs and the meals number. 575-528-3012-3012.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
I was in the second question. Sorry, Councilor Bencomo.
You can't, you missed it or, oh,
Mayor, Councilor Bencomo, I think I can start and then David can finish. So she was asking whether, for those that don't have internet access, can we put something in the utility bill? That's an easy thing. I think that we can get some flyers for the utility bills. One of the things in quality of life that we've been doing is making flyers available in the libraries and the museums while they were open, but we have also been putting things, giving helpful resources with the senior meals as they are coming through to get their senior meals. But
great, thank you. He said, yes, we can do that. And then I think also once this COVID-19 Las Cruces URL is up and running and full of content, perhaps we can also include that in some of these information messages going out in the utilities bill. That's it for me, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Mayor Pro Tem Gondra.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Lynn, so much for your work and all the staff, David, administration. I know you've been working tirelessly. I've been receiving emails late at night, just trying to stay ahead of the curve, if you will. Last week, I had an opportunity several days to meet with administration, and I just want, and thank you to the public who's here. I sent out SOSs to a lot of you to come out here and make sure that you're here and listening and kind of giving input as we move forward, because for me, so I'm an old CPS worker, right? A lot of you aren't aware, but I was a line worker, and then I became the county office manager in the regional, and I'm used to this stuff. The crisis is what we had to deal with day in and day out, especially when children are being abused and neglected in pretty horrific times. And a lot of our staff are just used to being the ones to respond and move through that, really in a lot of ways alone. So I've really appreciated Councilor Bencomo's sort of helping us sort of understand and focus, because I don't feel so alone. I think there's a lot of community members out there that want to help, a lot of businesses that are helping. And so I just want you to know that I'm completely committed in helping to make sure that our most vulnerable are being aided during this time. And so I've been talking a lot about privilege, right? This last week and this week about checking our privilege. All of us in this room, for the most part, have access to many of those things: internet, a cell phone, and so what I continue to be concerned about is our homeless population, our children that come to school for reprieve, for a safe haven. And I continue to be very, very concerned. And so some of the first conversations I was having is, what about our weed and seed? What about our GCC program? Because these are the kids that, for lack of better words, have a horrible, some of them, not all of them, have a very difficult home environment. And I know that the very difficult decision was to cancel, it sounds like, those particular after-school is what we know as the after-school programs. But I do want, the governor did come out with the child care resources, right? Kind of waiving certain things. I'm not sure, Lynn, that you have that, but one of the things that she asked is for people who are providing child care, that if at all possible, that you keep open for those kids that need that service. And so for me, I'm still, and I understand that, and I also understand that there's staff that was pretty upset about the decisions, because I received some calls about that on Friday night, having to go in on Monday given the situation. And so I want us to really think about that and what those kids are going to do tomorrow. I don't know what the numbers look like today, because it was the first day, right, that we were open and available within the confines that the governor has suggested, right, the 50. And so I know that staff was doing everything that they can to ensure that we were meeting those strict orders, if you will. And so I'm deeply concerned about how people are going to get information when they don't have access to internet, broadband, phones, those kinds of things. I am deeply concerned about the shop, going to grocery stores and not seeing the necessary products that people are going to, especially for our families that don't have the privilege of going and getting and purchasing things by bulk. I've offered many a times to give toilet paper and paper towels and food and anything that I can. And so I like the mayor's idea, as we talked last week or early this, I don't remember, this morning, about my concern about the hoarding that's going on, that the difficulties that we're having stocking, those necessary things. And quite frankly, my heartbreaking when seniors are out there who are either disabled or very sick on oxygen, trying to get to the grocery stores, right, to purchase these items. And so I really like that idea, Mayor, of purchasing, if we can, within the confines of anti-donation, and those things is making it available. And really, I'm not sure that we have grocery stores or Sam's or Walmart representation here today, and all the others, Target. It would be nice to have, an hour or two where our seniors can go and purchase those items and know that they have those items available to them.
Mayor Pro Tem, if you recall, we were looking at distributing them through the senior centers, so they don't have to have a certain time. They can just go pick them up and pay what we paid cost.
Okay, yes, yeah, whatever that is, I'm just agreeing with you that I like the idea, that I think we need to continue to explore that. I too like the idea of a website where all the information is that one can find is there at one fingertip, but I also am deeply concerned about people seeking, needing help and having to go online, filling something out, or calling and a message be taken. I think we need to make sure that when people call for information, that they're speaking to a live person. I received a call from a relative who her daughter, through New Mexico State University, had arrived back into the country via Egypt, and was trying to, locate people and/or to just have a conversation about what they were needing to do. This was sort of early on as things were sort of fluid and changing so quickly. And I don't know what that's like for people to be able to have a live person to be able to talk these things through, if you will. And I'm thinking this 1855 number is a good one, but I also want the public to know that if we needed to set up our own number, that I think we need to look into that. My daughter is a doctor at University of Colorado, and a medical doctor, yes. And she's very concerned in terms of the ventilators, the masks, those items that are required of our medical professionals, our EMS, our fire, and our police. And I'd like to pose that question: what do we have available for our medical community, and do we have enough of those tools to protect them as they're protecting us, and making sure that if someone gets diagnosed with COVID-19, that they have everything that they need? And so, Lynn, I'm not sure if that's available or not.
Mayor,
that kind of information, excuse me.
Yeah, Mayor, Councilor Gondara, I would just remind you when Dr. Alexander came and presented from the Department of Health at the last work session, the Department of Health has prioritized and works closely. They have weekly briefings with the hospital system in New Mexico to check those levels of PPEs and ventilators, and they work with them to provide that information. I don't know how many are available, but I know that they prioritize that specifically. They can access the national stockpile during times of emergency. So
I appreciate that, and I think, although very important to have that connection with the Department of Health at a state, I want to be sure that we know what the tools are available for our medical personnel here, and doing everything that we can to ensure that they have the proper equipment to do the work that we're asking them to do. And really, God bless them. They are really being put in positions, especially hearing kind of staggering percentages that Councilor Abeta-Stuvy indicated from her relative up in, I think that was Washington, right? And let's see, I noticed I saw Colin, yes, here from Emergency Management, and I was hoping to hear from them as it relates to a solid plan in terms of, currently we don't have any cases here in Las Cruces, but if we were to do that, what are we prepared to do? And I'd like to see, it's a three-tiered kind of, where we need to go to complete lockdown. I mean, I'm just throwing these sort of suggestions out. I'm not sure that that's what would happen, but I'd like to hear from them. Sorry, Lynn, I took a lot of notes, and I just want to make sure that that we are I've answered asked everything, and if not, I guess I can come back. But at this point, that's all, Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, David?
I want to hit on 2 points with Councilor Gondara, that our utilities are an essential service. All of our utilities are essential service, from solid waste to water to gas to wastewater. We want to help reinforce to the public our water system is safe, and you should be drinking our tap water. There is no need to rush out and buy bottled water at all. The other item is a reminder that paper towels and wipes are not flushable in our sewer system. That can lead to blockages within your internal house pipes or with our sewer system. So if there are words that you can get out to your constituents through your mail groups, please reinforce those 2 items. It would be most appreciated.
Thanks, David. Mayor Pro Tem Colin Combs was here briefly, and he just wanted to relay that he's working with the chief Enriquez and all of our other public safety officials, they're putting together, making the outreach to the armory and just getting the plan prepared just in the event of an emergency. And then he had to take off. Do you want to add something, Dave?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. We actually had a conference call this morning. I've been in contact with Mr. Combs throughout the week and the weekend, but we had a conference call this morning that they call their joint conference call, and we had several members from different agencies throughout the community, the Doña County, the schools, other areas, to make sure that people had resources. We're talking about what their modifications might be and what our next steps would be if we have to go to a different tier, as you're talking about, Mayor Pro Tem Gandara. We will have that same phone call on a weekly basis here moving forward, so that we can continue to update each other and all of our collaborating agencies, so that we have a better idea of where we're going to go next if we need to. Thank you.
Councilor Abeyta-Stube.
Thank you. A follow-up question for our utilities departments, just to clarify and make our public note. The suspensions for connections, that includes commercial properties too, or just residential?
Mr. Chairman, Councilor, it includes any customer that is in need of help.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was hoping.
Correct. And if I may add, it could be a small business that falls behind on the bills and all that, and we will not disconnect, and we work with them, just like we do with individual residential customers.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Ms. Gallagher, for the presentation and for the department for all the work that they've done. Another, I think, helpful thing would be to know kind of what our supply levels are as we move forward. One of the things even, and knowing what kind of our capacity levels are, so such as our senior meals, how many we're serving, how many we have capacity for right now, so that we can start gauging that to know if we need to start making those adjustments. Those are numbers I would love to see, to make sure that when I am referring constituents out, that I know that we're still within our capacity levels. And then thinking about our supply streams. I know even our businesses are going to be having to think about that later on too, of where we're getting our supplies from, if there's delays in that, and if we're making any adjustments, or if we expect any of those delays. I don't know, is that something, do we have any of those delays that we're expecting later on for our supply stream?
I can have the facilities management or address that piece. I would just address the senior programs portion to say that we are tracking every meal that we serve and the amount of services that we provide and how many more people call in to access meals. Today was our first day, and there were quite a large number of no-shows, and we're thinking about that delivery of service. Is that because, like good stewards, people are staying home even though they made a schedule, but we're tracking all of that every day, and today's not a great indicator to do that. But we will keep checking those numbers and adjust and readjust as necessary. But our suppliers for food have indicated we utilize 4 suppliers for food for our senior programs meals, and they have all indicated that they have more than enough to provide us what they need. Again, even if that means that it's more of a shack lunch.
Thank you. And I guess as we move forward, if we are cataloging the grab-and-go meals too, to see how many we're serving, maybe they didn't do the scheduling, but they're doing getting their food a different way. And I think a lot of my other questions actually have been answered for now, but thank you.
I apologize, did you want the answer on the supplies from facilities management?
Yes, if they're available.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Councilor Abeyta-Stube, Eric Martin, Facilities Management Administrator. We also work with different suppliers. Right now, we don't have any issues versus what we have in stock right now and what we can get a hold of in terms of toilet paper and paper towels, those kinds of things. the type of disinfectant that we use, which is in a special spray gun that you may have seen at our different buildings and things, we can still get a hold of those tablets and what have you. But the areas that we have run into are hand sanitizer and wipes. But we've been in contact with our suppliers. We've gotten ourselves at the head of the line. And so as you'll notice that we've been installing in different locations, City Hall starting and moving out, is you're seeing hand sanitizers being installed on the walls, as well as we're getting backup supplies for those. But otherwise, we're making sure that we put ourselves in line for any other materials that we may need, and then the vendor calls us and lets us know, here's what we've got that we can make available to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mayor, Councilor Abetas too, if I could add to that, as Ms. Gallagher pointed out, with respect to projections, we don't have an accurate projection right now, and the reason for that, because of the closures and the adjustments we've had to several of the programs, we're actually in good shape with our supplies because we don't need as many of them. But as we get further into these closures, then we can work on what the projection would be and where we are with the supply chain.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Councilor Sword?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Gallagher, for all the work you and your staffs have done, which is a lot, I know. I might have missed it, but does Las Cruces have its own hotline that anybody from Las Cruces can call for information about Las Cruces?
Mayor, I know we have the website Ask Las Cruces, the 311.
But a telephone
I don't know
number.
that telephone number, I would defer to.
Okay.
one
I
of
just
my-
wondered if we had one.
Councilor?
I was going to publicize it if we did.
Yeah, we don't, and that's why Councilor Vasquez wanted to have that special, easy to remember domain name.
Okay, good. It's being worked on, I suppose, then.
Yeah, I think they said be up and running tomorrow.
Good. Another question I had is, and I'll tell you why after I ask the question. Are there test kits for coronavirus here in Las Cruces now? Does anybody know?
Councilor, and speaking with the hospitals, they do have some.
They do have
But the reason why I asked them is because there was request to have a mobile venue. And so the reason why it was easier for Albuquerque to have it is because Tricor, the one who actually makes the test, is located there. And so
Yeah, I know.
what they're doing there in Albuquerque is they're getting the swab or whatever, the specimen, and they're just running to the lab and they can test it right there on the spot. So,
So how does it get from here to Albuquerque? The test?
okay, well, the test kit's here, then I guess they have to take it over there to Albuquerque. I don't know if they can test it here. I have no idea. I'm just saying that they since they manufacture and since they're there, the headquarters for Tricor,
Yeah.
it's real easy for them to do it. So the test kits have to be sent here, and that's why we need to have our legislative delegation, state delegation, kind of press the administration in Santa Fe to send more test
Well,
kits here.
let me explain why I asked that, because I heard a story just recently that a person from Las Cruces had just returned from Seattle, and she was not feeling well. I don't know if she had coronavirus symptoms or not, but she was not feeling well, and she was wanting to be checked out. And she called her doctor, and the doctor didn't help, and she called the health department, and they couldn't help her. So I'm hoping we can get that kind of thing straightened out, because you all know we need to know who has the coronavirus in order to control it. And that's so important. And that's why having test kits shortage in this country in general is such a bad thing. So anyway, the directive to encourage people to stay home is so important. And I know it's hard, because I'll tell you why. For 21 days straight, I had to stay in my home when I lived in Montana, simply because the temperature never got above zero all 21 days. I barely got out just to get some groceries once or twice, but otherwise I had to stay in just to keep warm. And so it's not easy, but we have to do it, and that's going to be the key to controlling as much as we can this disease. So, Mayor, that's all I have, I think.
Okay,
Yes.
so, okay, that's good. Anybody else? Councilor Flores?
I just want to say that I agree 100% with Councilor Vasquez's suggestion that we have something online that has links and just makes it very simple. I was just looking at an email from Carrie Hamblin that was sent out, and the title is "What Your Business Can Do to Reassure Your Customers," but it actually is more encompassing than that. And I just forwarded to the city manager and Udell. But it has to be very easy to access. And then as far as people who don't have computers at home, I think that we're going to have to do it the old-fashioned way, just put paper notices up, as much as we can. But then at the same time, as you say, you see people passing papers. And then I catch myself with my face. I'm always touching my face. I don't know why. But anyway, so I just wanted to share that and make sure that, and agree, and totally concur with Councilor Vasquez's comments. Thank you.
Mayor, Councilor Flores, and Council, a lot of you have mentioned those that don't have access to internet. And unfortunately for most people, a lot of my background is around emergency preparedness for a number of reasons. And during the Ebola outbreak and Zika, one of the ways that we were able to the state was able to reach those populations were through billboards. And so it can be a good mechanism to have the numbers posted on a billboard, to have that information on sides of the road.
On the side of buses?
Can definitely be on the side of a bus.
Did you have wraparounds or something that go up quickly?
The billboards sound like a pretty good idea.
I think buses make more sense because they're around the city. And billboards, unless you're out on Highway 70, and who's going to be cruising 70 when you're worried about the virus?
More people than you think.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, how many, I know a lot of residents are here that wish to say or have some comments. So if you could raise your hand, how many you would like to speak? So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just 5, 6? You sure? Because I go by how many you're gonna speak. Okay, so let's hold it again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so let's go 3 minutes each, and then if we have any further questions, we'll ask you some more questions. So let me just start on my left, and we'll just go from on down. Thank you, Lynn. I'm sorry? Oh, okay, sure, absolutely. Well, I was wondering why Clay was here. His boss is here.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you for letting me speak with you. My name is Elena Ball, and I'm a Senior Vice President with the Electric Company. As you all have been doing for weeks, we've been preparing for this potential pandemic and wanted to provide a few updates. And then I certainly would be happy to take questions that anyone has. Is that better?
There's a little switch
better?
to your right. That your little button, push forward, and it'll raise the podium up.
Is that better?
Eric's going to be right behind you.
Oh, you're making me tall. It's a stand-up desk. I will let you know that there is a document that Rico passed out. I promise you he sanitized his hands before handing you the paper. But it really outlines a number of the steps that the utility is taking to ensure reliable service for our customers. And the priorities, first and foremost, are the safety and health of both our customers as well as our employees. So we're making decisions with that first priority in mind. We also want to ensure that our system is reliable. And so we're really taking a careful look at all of our operations, ensuring our power plants and all of our transmission and distribution systems can safely and reliably serve power, not only to our residences and our businesses, but of course to those life-critical facilities like hospitals. Since I'm here in front of you, I wanted to encourage our customers to talk with us digitally, similar to a number of the programs that you all talked about that are going on here at the City of Las Cruces. We want to encourage our customers to email us, to telephone us, and really to help us socially distance. We do still have our walk-in centers open, but we're reevaluating that similar to what you all are doing on an ongoing basis. We talked a little bit about billing earlier last week as we were assessing the situation as we started to see cases show up in our service territory. We did make a decision to suspend disconnection for all customers. We do want our customers to work with us, reach out, we'll work with them on payment arrangements. We are going to continue to notify our customers of not only their normal billing cycle, but if they're behind, and we, again, encourage our customers to reach out to us so that we can work with them. A couple of other notes, something that hasn't been covered in the work session, but I think is really important and is near and dear to my heart, are scams. Unfortunately, we are here in a really difficult situation as a nation, and you would think we all pull together to try and do the right thing, and I think 99.9% of us do, but there are that small percentage of people who want to take advantage. And so if you all can help us, and we'll help you get the message out, that scammers will take opportunities like this to try and take money from people who are in a difficult position. So just know that if you get a suspicious email, a phone call, someone trying to demand payment indicating that they're the electric company, we want everyone to question that. Don't respond, pick up the phone and call us and validate whether that's correct. I was over at our customer contact center in Las Cruces this afternoon, and we've had such a situation in the front parking lot this afternoon. So be alert there. A couple of other items. As I mentioned, we really want to focus on digital. If customers do feel like they need to walk in, we've got our centers open. We're taking a lot of precautions to ensure that we're not spreading infection, but we do really want folks to use digital channels. We have plenty available. With that, I'll take any questions that you may have about the electric company or what steps we're taking. This is a fluid, evolving situation, so we do have this document that you have at the dais on our website, and we'll be updating it if there are changes in operations. Oh, and Rico wanted to remind me that all of our publications are in Spanish and English. Any questions?
Okay, well, great. No, it's very, well, I don't know. Councilor Benko.
I actually don't have a question, but it's just been brought to my attention that the mic keeps being touched by a lot of different people. There's wipes right here. Perhaps maybe we can limit the touching of the microphone. But if people want to clean it, there's little wipes right there.
That's great. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you very much for coming over here, and Rico does a fantastic job, and we appreciate that.
Well, he has a new name now, Rico Suave. Thank you.
Oh, you heard about Rico Suave, huh? Were you here earlier? Okay. Okay.
Rico sounds sick. I'm just not so suave.
So would you want to speak, or this was just for her? Okay. So now we're on the second row, and the superintendent, Karen Trujillo. And if you need more than 3 minutes, I mean, you're in charge of all the school kids in the city, so that's, if you need a couple more minutes, it's fine.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you so much for allowing us to speak. So today we did our first day of...
Dr. Trujillo, I'm sorry, can you state your name, please?
Sorry, Dr. Karen Trujillo, Superintendent of Las Cruces Public Schools. Again, thank you for having us, or having me here. Now I'm going to need to lower this thing because or I'll stand on my tippy toes. Today we partnered with FYI to do our first day of meal distribution, but what we discovered, that's good, thank you, was that the capacity that they could carry was really not quite what we need. So starting tomorrow, we are expanding to 17 additional sites. So we will be adding Alameda Elementary, Central Elementary, Cesar Chavez / Sunrise, Columbia Elementary at the old address, because that's where those families live. Conley Elementary will remain at Desert Hills. The Doniana site will go from the Doniana Community Center to Doniana Elementary School. Hermosa Heights, Hillrise, Loma Heights Elementary, Lynn Middle School, MacArthur, Mesa Middle School, Mesilla Elementary, Mesilla Park. Picacho Middle School will remain the same. Tombaugh Elementary, University Hills, and Valley View. So we are going to be staffing those ourselves. All of the meals are being cooked at Las Cruces High School with our food service folks, and our administrators and security guards will man those additional 17 sites. FYI, we'll be closing down, like I said, Doniana Community Center and the Frank O'Brien Community Center in Mesilla because we had very few students there, and we have elementaries nearby, so we'll pick up that traffic. They will add Presidio Park at New Mexico State University and the public library in the parking lot. Much like the city, we have all of our school sites closed down completely. We will be doing the deep cleaning once we kind of figure out what that looks like in 3 weeks. It's changing every day. Some of the issues with the food that maybe you can assist us with, and we've already reached out both to our local delegation and the national delegation, but there are very strict rules with food distribution, as your senior programs probably know, and we're trying to navigate that as best as possible without having to turn anybody away. But there were people today, because FYI was given instructions from CYFD that children had to be present in order to pick up the food. And that's very difficult. So we had cars driving up with 6 people and said, well, I only have 6 seat belts. What am I supposed to do with the other 2? So we were trying to be as gracious as possible, but there were those situations today. Some of the things that I think we could hopefully continue to partner on, we do have students that were quarantined because they were in Washington, D.C. and California. They obviously are quarantined as a household. So we're trying to figure out that delivery system. So if we could maybe connect with the senior delivery system and possibly they can help pick up that delivery capacity, that would be helpful. The other thing that I would like to offer to the city is the fact that we do have direct contact with every single parent via our In Touch system, which is a text messaging system, and all of the emails. So for those of you, I know there was a lot of discussion about how to contact parents. We do have that capacity. So if you want to message out very specific things about not turning off, utilities or those in a very concise manner, it has to be 450 characters or less, but that includes both the English and the Spanish. So really like 220 characters. We'd be happy to send that out to all of our parents. We do have translators, so everything we have goes out regularly in English and Spanish. And we're trying to use our social media and, again, the In Touch system to communicate as effectively as possible. So with that, I stand for questions.
So David, I guess you have there's someone working with the public schools for any type of transportation issues or?
Mayor, members of council, we have had discussions with the school system. We had a conference call with them when they were first talking about how they were going to do the food distribution. As we've all talked about throughout the day here, because things have changed so much, this is the first we've heard about the assistance from senior programs for those students. We definitely can get into discussions with that, as well as discussions for getting the information out to parents that we are crafting with respect to our news releases.
Thank you. And last but not least, if we could, because we also have a static website that we're constantly updating, we're more than happy to put your link on ours if you would also put our link on yours. Okay.
Yeah, I think, great idea on that. And let me just throw this out for Jennifer. I think, like, for example, if we needed to additional overtime, and especially if we're delivering to seniors, and especially on Meals on Wheels, I'm sure we can tap into our Telshore funds, since they probably hit a certain income level and below, I would think. Okay. Yeah, that way there, we don't have to, we know where we can get that overtime money, and we can run with that.
And again, we may not need that assistance. That would just be for emergency purposes.
So let's see if there's questions for you. Councilor Flores, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Dr. Trujillo, for your presentation. When you said that some of the school sites have been consolidated, did I understand correctly if they're being consolidated with other schools? Is that correct, or what exactly?
So in order to get reimbursed for our meals, the school site has to have over 50% of the students qualify for free and reduced lunch. So we picked all of the school sites across the city that would qualify. We added Desert Hills because we needed coverage in that area. So they were already a site, so we're picking up 100% of that cost out of our own budget, out of our operating budget. We won't be reimbursed for those. So we strategically, when we were working with FYI, strategically picked, 2 sites up on the East Mesa, centrally located sites. We had one in Mesilla. We were trying to be very strategic with that. But now that we're adding the 17 additional, it's our 17 schools that are above the 50% threshold.
So that's under the Title I program, right?
It is defined by free and reduced lunch counts, yes.
So is there any way, because I'm sure that well, especially because of the situation that there are children who probably wouldn't qualify for under Title I, but would still need to be fed just because, God knows, some of them are probably home alone. But I guess what what I find disconcerting, not you personally, but the situation, is that children have to go. Some of those schools sounded as if the neighborhoods were kind of far away. And I don't know how children or their parent, and you say children have to be there, presumably accompanied by their parents, because, so how, and all of that is what really boggles my mind, that just the logistics. And I want to know how we're addressing that.
Thank you, Councilor Flores, members of the City Council and Mayor. We've been trying to deal with that for the last 5 days and reaching out to all of our legislators. We reached out to our federal legislators as well. The regulations are USDA regulations, so at the state level, they can't do anything about it, but I do want you to please, please, please understand that any child that shows up at any of those sites will get food. So if if they come and they say, well, I go to Sonoma Ranch Elementary and they go to Lynn, it doesn't matter. Any kid under the age of 18 that is there will be fed, whether they are with their parent or not. So we did have many students that walked to the food distribution sites, and they will still be fed.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Councilor Beta Stubbe.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say thank you very much, Superintendent. I know that I've been receiving a lot of communication through the schools on updates on where to feed children, resources, what to do with the kids while they're home. We're on day 3, so they're already going crazy. But I just wanted to say thank you. And then I do hope that when we get our website up, that we definitely have all of those food distribution sites readily available so that people can know where to go so that they can get a meal for their child. But thank you so much for all the work that you've done with this.
Definitely isn't alone. It takes all of the team that are here and those that are off-site, especially the food. Our nutrition services folks have been amazing.
And I have to say that this weekend I did send a message to Mayor about asking if we did grab-and-go meals as well in kind of mimicking our senior programs, something similar, because it's a really great system to get them in and out and limit that contagion. So thank you.
Dr. Trujillo, can you expand on, I heard you just say something about you're picking it up on your own. What was that? I guess it was the cost of meals?
So the cost of the meals, so all of the meals that are picked up at Desert Hills Elementary, we have to cover that cost from our operation funds. We will not be reimbursed from USDA unless they ease up on their regulations, so we have to keep track of those.
And how much is that?
Well, today at Desert Hills, we distributed about 200 lunches, and how many breakfasts? About 100, and those rates, I don't know, they're about $2.50 for the lunches and like $1.10 for breakfast or something like that. So about $4 a day per meal. I mean, I don't know, whatever that works out to.
But
It's been a long day.
So about 800 a day?
Yeah, probably.
So,
Could be. I mean, and those numbers will fluctuate.
They'll probably go up
They're probably going to go up.
because today was the first day.
I mean, today was, I mean, the numbers from breakfast to lunch tripled. So there were some sites where we would serve like 100 breakfasts, and at Picacho Middle School, we did 350 lunches.
and so these children, theoretically, did you say, or did they hit a certain income threshold?
So they do it by school site. So they don't judge. In our view, we were thinking even Desert Hills might have a 38% student population that qualifies for free and reduced lunch, but it doesn't matter. You either meet the 50 or you don't. And we called, I mean, all the secretaries, and that's the guidance they've received. But I do know that the state of New Mexico has submitted a waiver to USDA to waive those. But the guidance we've received from the federal government are the 50% threshold.
The reason why I ask is perhaps, let's just say we were to go 10,000 a week, and if you can have your staff maybe reach out to ours and see if they can qualify, and perhaps we can, through our Telshore Fund, maybe give $30,000 for those 3 weeks that the school's going to be out.
That would be great. And I think the other piece is that we are honestly looking at it going beyond that 3 weeks. I mean, it's very, very possible that this is going to happen and go on beyond that 3 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. And if need, whatever we need to do to help, because of course, if that's money that you won't be able to have, and I know the school's already tight as it is, and we appreciate the extra security that you guys have been doing too, because I know that when we had that discussion last year, that was something you guys had to find the money for, so.
Yes.
Okay, so if you can communicate with them.
We will, most
Okay,
definitely. Thank you.
great. Okay, all right, thank you very
Thank you.
much. Mhm.
Mayor, I have a question.
Oh.
Sorry,
Yes, it's okay.
Dr. Trujillo.
That's okay.
You didn't get away with it that
Yes.
easy. No, is there any other services or resources that you feel the city could help with, that you're kind of anticipating or have been,
At this time, I think we're okay. I mean, we messaged out for our student-based health centers,
Yeah.
provided information for those off-site locations because our school buildings are closed. But we do have the Ben Archer Health Center behind Mayfield. We do have one up on the East Mesa, and La Clinica is also covering their patients, and they've messaged out. Those that have been receiving regular behavioral health counseling, we are checking in with those students specifically, so we had a list, and our counselors are making sure that they're okay, because again, 3 days and kids are already kind of, those that have issues with behavioral health and mental health, it's a much more serious situation.
Right.
So we're making sure that we're in communication with them as well. The other things that we're working on are looking at providing additional online resources for parents. None of this is quote unquote for credit, so it really is for parents to have a resource for their children, to have something for them to do. I started doing a video this morning. I did one in English and in Spanish for parents and kids, and we'll do that as much as needed, but at least weekly, to provide information, because in this day and age, a lot of times video is a little bit more, an easier way to communicate with larger amounts of people.
it was good, by the way. I
In my
shared it.
bedroom at 11 o'clock last night, yes.
So along those lines, Dr. Trujillo, I do have the number for the crisis line for any mental health issues that people may be having, and I'd like to verbalize that at this point. It's 855-662-7474, and it's 1-855-NM-CRISIS, CRISIS. So please, I know I'm really concerned with our folks that might be suffering from mental illness and you can't get to their counselors, I think this is really posing a lot of anxiety and depression, especially for social isolation. Those are all the things that I've been concerned about with stopping our services, because many people are going just to the facilities that we have, museums and library, and our Parks and Rec, that kind of thing. So I'm hoping that we can work with Carrie Bachman. I think you were here when I mentioned that. Her time banking program, I think it's probably going to be essential as we move forward, and I would encourage you to reach out to her, especially for those parents that you're now starting to figure out need a little more resource, a little more support. So thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Dr. Trujillo.
Thank you. And we are also working with our early childhood providers and providing them with anything that they might need for as long as they are able to stay open. So, thank you.
Councilor Flores?
Dr. Trujillo, we're not letting you go. We're going to bench you.
I know.
My biggest concern with all of this is, well, I'm concerned about everyone, all of us on the planet, but the children, where are they going and who's watching them? Parents have to work unless their job gets cut back, because we know that parents or adults in the household each have about 2 jobs apiece. So children, at least when they go to school, it's a respite when they go to school. And as Councilor or Mayor Pro Tem Gandara pointed out earlier, that some of these, going to school is like their oasis, and it's a refuge. So what's happening? What are our children doing, and no, shrug.
I mean, at this point, we, I mean, with the schools being closed, we're doing as much as we can in communicating by telephone, teachers making sure that they are communicating with their students on a weekly basis, just doing kind of a check-in.
Okay. That's good to know.
Tomorrow we meet with our unions, so NEA and CSEC, so we're going to try with them to navigate what it is that we are able to do. So much like the state telling the school districts, well, you have to, I mean, you can suggest and recommend and hope that people do certain things, but there's very few things that we can make, quote unquote, make people do. So tomorrow we'll sit down with our NEA and our CSEC and try and navigate through what this is going to look like, at least for the next 3 weeks. But really doing that touching base with our students, touching base with our parents, with all of the communication that we're able to. And hopefully we're only going to be navigating for this 3-week period, but if it extends past that, then we're also having those, we're talking through those plans and what that might look like through the rest of the school year.
So you do have personnel, teachers or whatever, in touch with children?
I mean, at this point, we're day one, so yeah. If it goes beyond that, then yes, we're working on those contingency plans as well.
Thank you very much, Dr. Trujillo.
Thank you. Anyone else?
And I'm very happy to see Dr. Lozano and Dr. Jaques here.
Yes.
I've got one.
Thank you.
So I know this is going to sound silly, but I go to the 3rd graders, and one of the things, and we were right in the middle of all the fitness and nutrition, and so one of the things is that they can't spend more than 2 hours playing video games, watching TV, or playing on the computer. So can you communicate to the 3rd graders that I will lift the ban, and they can
do the, well, nah, we're not going to lift it quite yet.
They can.
Even in my message this morning.
That way they don't, drive their parents crazy.
Totally crazy.
They can just sit there and watch
Even
TV.
in the message this morning, it was like, you make sure you go outside and you're getting exercise and you're doing those things, including reading and doing math and writing stories. So,
okay, well, tell them I'll double it to 4 hours, and they can do
4 hours in a day.
instead of 2.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Gabe, you had something? No? Oh, okay. Marcy?
If you will, my name is Marcy Dickerson, owner of the game. If you will indulge me in just a few seconds, I have a crisis to bring to you, but I think a solution to the possible crisis was just presented. So we are facing one of the largest economic crises in the hospitality and tourism agency or industry ever in the history of mankind right now in Las Cruces. Your restaurants are getting ready to be shut down. We have already suffered, Dickerson's Catering alone has lost $225,000 between 9 a.m. Wednesday and 5 p.m. Thursday in cancellations. The reason I was bringing this to you, and I know many of my fellow people behind me who are in the same business were coming because we were coming to ask you for help. We were coming to ask you for relief and maybe some type of help in what do we do? What do we do with those 140 employees that I have that can't come to work if I don't have any customers to serve them? What do we all do with all of our people? And I'm going to take a time out from that and go to a solution that my brain just came up with. Dr. Trujillo has a major problem on her hands. As you pointed out, we have children who are staying at home. We have children who don't have transportation. We have children and poor families, because not only is this just about the child, some of these parents can no longer go to work. Some of these parents can't afford to feed those children. She's talking about the group of population that's on free and reduced lunches. We have a lot of people in our community that don't quite qualify for that, but now that they must feed their children 3 times a day, we have got a crisis on our hands. All the way around, I think we might have a really creative, wonderful solution that I ask you to indulge me and to contemplate this. And certainly, thank you, Dr. Trujillo, for staying. I sent a message and said we may have a solution for you. We've got a hospitality industry that has cooks, they have kitchens, they have access to food, and their doors are empty. What if we, as a community, especially with you all leading, could come up with a way that we can utilize some of those funds from the Telshore Fund, because certainly we utilized those funds to help when we had the asylum seekers crisis. What if we came up with a way for the city to utilize the funds from the Telshore Fund to provide food for these people? For these students that may not be exactly under the free and entitled lunch, for these families. And the way that we do that is we put the restaurants to work. We put the restaurants to work handling takeout and all of those services that we will probably be allowed to do. You know, what if we're able to get creative and help our community? We talk about limited funding with USDA. We talk about with requirements from the USDA that these students must be present. We got together yesterday and put out a community challenge. I came up with enough money for 3,000 meals in 24 hours. Those meals have no restrictions. Those meals don't have to have children present. People are at my restaurant right now picking up meals for their family. And as long as they order off the kid meal, there we go. We've got some senior citizens, and they said, we don't have anything to eat. I said, you want to eat off the kid meal? They said, yes, I do. I said, there you go. Do we have a creative way to solve this? Yes, my intention today, and when I called all these people behind me, was to come to you and say, we're looking at a serious economic collapse here. I have 140 employees that I have to figure out how to pay, that I have to not let them starve, that I have to make sure they can pay their rent. Thank you to El Paso Electric and the city utilities, because they don't have to pay those right now. But we have a serious crisis. And our city has an opportunity, as well as to now work with our school board, that maybe this could be an option. That you all could come, instead of just providing, us begging for relief money and help, maybe we can come up with a way that we can solve all these problems together. Certainly these kids, we wouldn't charge you what we charge normal people, but maybe we can come up with something to where we can create food for all of these children and these poor families and these people who are having to take off work because they don't have childcare. We have children in our restaurant right now, of my employees' children, because they don't have childcare, because they don't have anybody. And I said, you bring them. We hired somebody else's kid to come in and watch those kids. The fact I ordered 20 cases of bleach makes me feel better. But, we have that. So we all have to get creative together. But I will tell you some real stats. At the moment, the catering company in the next 45 days has lost $225,000. The games are operational. We are already down since this crisis started. And in our world, it started about Wednesday, because that's when the governor started issuing things. Since Wednesday, the games have lost just about $75,000. This is a crisis. We have a lot of employees, all of us across the board. We put out to the public that my catering crew was available to do any type of community service. Today, they spent the day chopping weeds for people. We're trying to keep everybody employed. We're trying not to lay them off. We're trying to help them make sure their bills are paid and their kids are taken care of and that kind of stuff. But we need some help from you. I know we've accessed the Telshore funds for things before, and I feel like we should be able to access them, and we ask you, we implore you to please access them again. And maybe instead of just giving handouts, we figure out a way that we can let all of us come together to truly provide a solution. I asked Dr. Trujillo to wait for me because guess what I happen to have? I happen to have 35 drivers and 8 vehicles. And guess what they're doing? Nothing. Because they're unemployed. Well, not really. They're just not earning any money for me. I'm still paying them. But I have drivers that can help solve this problem with getting these meals to children. We had a father call the game today, and he said, my family lives up on the hill. They have no transportation other than myself, and I have to go to work. So may I pick up meals for my family for today and tomorrow? He's all, because I can only get there one time a day. And I said, absolutely, sir. I told my staff, I said, when he gets here, you get his phone number, and I will call him. And I will personally make sure that those people are delivered meals every day. Because we will not have any children nor any individuals who live in this community who need food to starve. That is not what I do personally, and I don't believe that's what anybody else does. So thank you for indulging me. I know it's a little longer than 3 minutes, but the idea came as we were sitting here listening. I just ask you, let us all get together. Let us be creative in the ways. She's already, Dr. Trujillo is very overburdened. Her staff is overburdened. You know what? We're about to have a whole lot of really high quality cooks sitting around this town without much to do. Let us employ people temporarily to do things that we need them to do so that we can all survive together. So thank you. I do appreciate your tolerance of that. I'm sure I have more friends behind me who have things to say, but thank you very much. Do you have any questions for me?
No, Councilor Flores.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's not a question, but I did see a video with Bill McCamley, the Secretary of Work Solutions for the state of New Mexico, and he was saying that people who are unemployed can collect for unemployment insurance, and they won't be required to show that they're looking for other work because it's a temporary unemployment situation. And he asked employers to meet the state one-third of the way or something like that. So it wouldn't be a burden on the state, and there'd be more funds to accommodate other unemployed workers. So I just wanted to share that. Perhaps you were already aware of that.
May I answer that? Yes, ma'am, we are. Thank you very much. One of the things that we are aware of is that unemployment only pays a percentage of what their paycheck was.
That's right. The max is $441.
Yeah, and those ones that have, tipped wages, theirs is even less because they are not. I'll tell you what I'm doing personally. When this happens, if this happens, we're sure it's going to, but when we get to that point, what I have told my staff was that, we will work through the unemployment thing, and then any bills they're not able to pay, we will personally borrow, we've set it up so we have a good borrowing ability that we will be able to help with that. But the problem is a lot of people aren't in that same situation, and for a lot of these servers, the percentage of it is not, because truthfully, they haven't been reporting their actual tips for years, right? Okay. But now that's one of the crises of this.
Yes.
But thank you.
And thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anything else for
So,
anybody? Yes.
so Marcy, your ideas are very creative, and if you let staff see what we can do, and we have to determine whether or not the threshold for the state puts on the anti-donation clause, if this temporary would qualify for that. But nonetheless, I think you've given us some ideas to think about.
If I may give a suggestion, I think this could be very similar to the catering contracts you have now. Because you are purchasing food. You're not making a donation. You are purchasing food, much like all the other event contracts that you guys put out for RFPs, much like the meetings that you pay for through your P cards, those types of things. This is very similar to the same thing. It's just not, the employees aren't eating it unless your employees need to. We have other people, so.
Absolutely, and that's where our legal department will do our best. And just check back with us in a couple days, a few days.
Not a problem. I'm sure all those other ones, it's like, this is a mess. I just thought of something creative to maybe help us out a bit. Yeah. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, anyone, let's see, was that? Oh, you know what? I get a message that Lorenzo Alba would like to speak. Carrie, before you come up, he's going to have to run, so Lorenzo. Just need you to state your name, please.
I'm sprinting over here. That's like top speed for me. My name is Lorenzo Alva. I'm the executive director of Casa de Peregrinos. And thank you for allowing me to speak a little bit here. I just want to assure all of you that our operation is open and continues to serve the public. We've made a lot of adjustments to our operation to take precautions on how we're serving them. And we're still getting them through. It's a little bit slower process, but it allows us to continue to feed the hungry. We also have all our 13 rural pantries that are still open in the county as well, and at the colleges as well. We've been working with DACC on a procedure. I also received a phone call from the city, and we'll be working with them on a procedure for the senior pantries that we have as well. I think it'll take a similar route as what they're doing currently. We're willing to do anything to just continue to feed the public, especially those in need in this time. Today was our first day also to kind of gauge what's going on, and it was a very slow day. A lot of people stayed home. They stayed home. And some people showed up and they had their own gloves and their own masks, which was interesting. I did not expect that to happen. Above and beyond taking those extra precautions, our clients have been very, very patient with us and understanding all the changes that we're making. Currently, we're only allowing 15 clients at a time into our lobby. That way they can all be separated in a nice space. And then when we're done serving those 15, we disinfect the lobby again, let another 15 in. So it's a slower process, but we're still able to serve everybody and take care of everybody. We're going to be here until you guys tell me that I have to close the building. So we're going to continue to do the services provide the services that we provide for everyone. We want to continue to do this. If you guys have ideas that might help us, get this out a little faster, please reach out to me or come take a look at what we're doing, because you may have ideas that help us, help the process speed up a little bit to get people out. I wish that we could do the drive-up service at the Community of Hope, but the way that it's designed, there's absolutely no way that we could absolutely do that. I've looked and thought about it. I thought, my goodness, man, we'd have a bottleneck on Amador Avenue for a long time, and we've already got a bottleneck at Valley, so we don't need another one. But anyways, I just wanted to make sure you guys knew what we were doing. If there's anything more that you need us to do, just a phone call will absolutely work. There's nothing like having a partnership like the one we have with you guys. And then our partners at the Community of Hope are also very understanding about what we're doing there. We keep them informed as well. There'll probably be something on our website later on today, just letting people know that we're still open. We've got a few messages out on the social networks. Today I was in El Paso at a funeral early this morning, and I picked up a brochure that the city of El Paso put up about the virus. It was at a church. So I think what they did is they got informative brochures made in both languages and put them out throughout the community. It was in partnership with their emergency management office, had both of their logos on it. I'm not going to bring them to you. I'm just going to leave them right there, and you guys can pick them up. The ones that I picked up were in Spanish, but that might be an idea for those folks that don't have access to the internet, and actually might help with the situation that Councilor Gabe Vasquez was talking about the churches. I can tell you right now, I went to Mass on Sunday with a fraction of the people there anyways. I think they get it. The bishop's message has been strong. But a brochure in a church or in large facilities or in businesses letting people know what precautions you're taking, I think would be huge. I think it would be a great service for our community, because they'd be able to pick something up, take it home, read through it, share it with their family, and let everybody know what this community is actually doing to take precautions. We have to take this serious, no matter what it takes, or what people may think, or what which way they're leaning on this. Bottom line is that we're putting ourselves at risk if we don't take it serious. So that's what we're doing at Casa Peregrinos, and at this point, I'll entertain any questions you have for me.
Thanks, Lorenzo. I was just going to say, keep us informed with how things are going with you all. I know that we have in the past funded or given some funding to your organization. If you guys do a fantastic job, and if need be, I think council will step it up to help out again.
Thank you so much, and I think it's just one of those times where we just need to pull our resources together and do good things, you know. I saw this happen before in this community. I'm calling this crisis 2.0 because this community came together, and it can come together again to get through it. We got through the migrant crisis together, and we can get through this together. And I just strongly assure you that we will be there with you, okay? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lorenzo. Okay, Ms. Carrie Hamblin, thanks for your indulgence.
So if you'll give me a minute so that I can do this. This has been driving me nuts all meeting. Sorry. It's just, there have been how many people touching? Thank you. Yeah, the microphone too. Pardon? So, my name is Carrie Hamblin. I'm the CEO and president of the Las Cruces Green Chamber of Commerce, and thank you very much for having this meeting tonight. You know, we've had some incredible ideas, and one of the things that seems the thread that is carried throughout is that we have a very passionate, giving, and concerning community. And I'm grateful that we have our city council, all of you, who are also just as committed to making sure that our community members are safe. You know, the email that Councilor Flores referenced earlier, that's really in part, as part of a collective effort from my colleagues at the Small Business Development Center, Joanne Garay, and Debbie Moore at the Greater Las Cruces Chamber of Commerce, Davin at Mesilla Valley Economic Development Alliance. All of us are coming together and sharing this information so that our businesses can be informed on relief efforts, disaster relief application that we have through the Small Business Administration, the LIDA funds, a number of things that can help them. And I know one of the things that they're incredibly concerned about is how they can take care of their employees. Nobody wants to lay off their employees. Nobody wants to lose anybody because they can't make ends meet. And I think that one of the things at the website that you're developing is to really look at like different categories. And I feel sorry for the web designer who's going to build this, but the different categories of the issues that we've talked about today, that they can gather all of that information. So under business, that our business community can go ahead and look at that website and look at all the resources that are available to them. Also look at, you know, we're terrified for our businesses right now. We know that they're coming up with creative things to help keep people going to their business. I'm encouraging people, buy gift cards. Ask them, call them and ask them if they do delivery. Call them and ask them if they do curbside service. They want to help keep their customers, you know, taken care of, and they're coming up with creative ideas to do it. So let's give them a chance to help publicize that. So we've asked that through the Green Chamber, and I know my colleagues are doing the same thing. But one of the things that came up when Lorenzo was up here was, you know, there are pockets all throughout our community of people who are doing things to help take care of each other. I'm babysitting my neighbor kid tomorrow while her mom goes to the recycling center. You know, and so we have those things. And so maybe an opportunity on that website would be, what are you doing to help your community? Not like, what are you doing? But what are you doing? Share with us, because I think there are creative ideas that people are in a position that they have to come up with to help do things to make their lives a little bit more bearable. So I would encourage that on the website. The other thing is that when we start talking about different funds and like, you know, ways to provide resources, even though the Small Business Administration is providing this disaster relief funding that we need to go through the state in order to justify that there is a need, there's a time where we're going to have that conversation locally. And that's going to be something that I would encourage getting a task force of my colleagues who are here in the audience and business members, because we need to come up with creative ways to help our businesses. I'm grateful that utilities will not be shut down. I'm grateful that there are resources available, but I worry, and I'm not usually a doomsday person, but I worry that there will be places where our businesses will go to a point where they cannot recover. And so I know I have the opportunity to reach out to you, and I appreciate all of you being approachable and open to those conversations. I would just like to have that something as as a back burner idea as to how we can help our businesses, because I do feel that they're hurting already, and I worry about some of them may not be able to return back to business in Las Cruces. So thank you for your time. I don't know if there's any questions. Gabe, I'm watching you.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Sword, Councilor Vasquez.
Oh, I just would like to add, you brought to my mind, there is in my district, these neighborhood next door organizations. And I noticed one of the postings was a person that said, if anybody needs somebody to get some groceries or some supplies of any kind, let me know, I'll get them for them.
Right.
So just what you were saying.
Sure, next door, Las Cruces Community Watch, which is, rampant on this right now. I think you can find those things. And I think it's really promoting those and maybe having those as links as well. Want to know what's going on in your neighborhood? Go to next door. A number of resources that can be available. And I'm glad that you have the website that we can do that.
Councilor Vasquez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Carrie. So I'm thinking about the kind of hierarchy of need in the community, right, in terms of what city resources should be prioritized, and especially financial resources, and dedicated to. And I keep thinking about the most impacted potential population, right, children and seniors. Certainly folks who, through economic reasons, right, if they are let go from their employer, obviously that creates an economic hardship for potentially an entire family that we should also prioritize, because if there's no income coming in through the door, then how do you pay for all the necessities of a household? So businesses, I think, are part of that solution, right? We want to make sure that folks aren't letting go of employees because that provides direct income to the families who are so worried about. And so thinking through this task force idea that you brought up is how do we prioritize in an equitable way, right? What type of business assistance the city can deliver, so that we're not just saying, hey, we're picking one business because they came up with a great idea, or hey, they have demonstrated, or they said that they need something, but actually kind of through I don't know what kind of way we could verify, or what kind of system would we have to put in place to offer assistance to businesses that need it the most, right? Maybe it's those mom and pop shops with 2 employees or with 3 employees versus other ones with lines of credit that could get loans, right? And so that'd be something really interesting to explore, maybe through this task force, but actually being direct in the assistance that we provide to those businesses that would be in danger of failure, or some other, horrible thing that happens as a result of this. So something I think would love to continue talking with you about in terms of equitable distribution of resources with a hierarchy of need of how can city resources best address the needs of our community, knowing that businesses are a part of that. So.
Right, Mr. Mayor, Councilor Vasquez, if I may, I think our business community, they're not greedy, they're not selfish. They recognize this is what I need right now. I don't need anything beyond that. They're very resourceful, they're creative, they're also very patient. But I think that when it comes down to shutting their doors, they're not just looking at their pockets and their households, but they're looking at those of their employees.
Thank you, Carrie, so much for being proactive on that. And I think the idea of local community resources is a great idea. I think it's going to be hard to kind of put everything that everyone is doing on a website, but perhaps like those linkages like Nextdoor, social media, places where people can connect. I think that's doable, absolutely. So thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Carrie, for getting here. I know we have been communicating back and forth. I appreciate your support for sure, and your commitment to the business community. And I too have a commitment to our business community. And along the lines of Councilor Vasquez's questioning or comments and whatnot, Mavita had been circulating, I think I saw it from Greater Chamber, maybe from you, the Economic Development Department putting out the $2 million appropriation, right?
Right,
But
Small
within-
Business Development Center as well. Joanne sent out something really thorough today.
So can you talk to me about what are the positives to that and maybe some negatives? Because I'm thinking along those lines around if the city were to do something like that, and I don't know that we can based on the anti-donation, but with this task force, right, kind of coming together, looking at ways by which we can help these mom and pop shops versus these other larger businesses, still probably within the small business definition, but that have access. And so equity is very important to me as well. And so I'm looking to, I haven't, because it's not in my wheelhouse, I hadn't really looked at the applications and those kinds of things to really assess if there's any kind of barriers or anything like that that we might encounter by offering something like that.
Well, I think also, I don't know if my colleagues want to come up to the podium or not to help out with that. I mean, we can, I think we're all here for the same reason and maybe talking about that and kind of answering those questions. As they're coming up, it's right now it's to determine a need with the Small Business Authority at the state level. And so I think, and you've got the information right there, so I don't know, I know how much you love public speaking, so I don't know, do you want to do?
She can do it. She's great.
Hi, I'm Joanne Garay. I'm the director of the Small Business Development Center here at Doña Ana Community College. So there was a conference call on Friday with the New Mexico Economic Development, and I hurriedly put together some information that would help our small businesses who are facing the potential of losing their businesses and losing jobs for their employees and so forth. And so right now with the SBA, as Carrie mentioned, we're waiting to get that, the declaration of disaster for the New Mexico. And right now, from what I understand, it's already been sent to Washington, and now it's just for final review, and hopefully we'll get that declaration soon, and we can start the SBA process for those businesses. There are also with the New Mexico Economic Development, because all of this was put together so quickly, there's some things that they're having to iron out as well. And so me and my staff, we are on the internet, we're on conference calls, we're on anything that we can find so that we can continue to update the information for our small businesses. And we know that there's a lot of panic. And so our offices are still open. We are following the governor recommendation of the 6-foot social distancing, but we are capable of doing Zoom meetings and phone conferencing. So we do have that available. And as I am obtaining more information, and I like the idea of having the task force, because we're going to have to do this together. And I'm panicking for the small businesses because it really does affect all of us.
Sure.
And so if we can, again, work together and we can get this information, and I'm just trying to distribute it as much as I can. And we are also putting it together in Spanish.
Good.
Oh, and that being said, the SBDC, as well as our SBA resource partners, West and SCORE, disaster preparedness response guide was put together for our clients. And a lot of times what happens is they have all their information in their heads, right, in their minds, but they need to put it on paper, and they're not really sure where to start. And so this guide will help them to determine, okay, my employees, am I going to reduce the hours? Am I going to have to lay off? But they can actually put it on paper. And just like Carrie said, our small businesses are not greedy. They're trying to see what they can do and get their resources together. And this guide will help them to determine how much operating expenses do they need for the next 3 to 6 months? How much do they need to borrow from the federal and the state assistance? And so with that said, the SBDC is there to help. And again, as a task force, we can help our small businesses together because we're all basically seeing the same businesses. And so that right now, like I said, our office hours, we are going to be open from 8 to 5. We're not going to do person-to-person consultations. We are going to do Zoom and phone. And Councilor Vasquez, you mentioned about the tier, like where are they? And we had that discussion, my team and I had that discussion, like which clients do we see first? Because we're going to get inundated with calls. And so it's really difficult because we go back to how do you determine what's most important or what's more at risk? And so it's also find out, okay, how much at risk are they at closing the business? And which clients do we see first? And if it's the ones that are just inquiring about starting a business, right now is not the time for that. We really want to try and help those businesses that are at risk at closing.
Debbie Moore, President and CEO of the Greater Las Cruces Chamber of Commerce. I guess I could say a big ditto to everything my colleagues have said. I think one thing I want to address, there was much conversation about what the children are doing. Our businesses are so great. I know some of the small businesses have created a playroom for their kids and for their clients' kids. They're hiring, they're taking in one employee to take the rest and to take care of them and doing all these very creative things. I think to the point that the first thing, Councilor Vasquez, I think is the health and safety of all of our employees and all the business. And that's where I see this great community. I've talked to the mayor many times about how I just love to be in Las Cruces, the family and that feeling that you get that we can do this together. This is a great community, and I see this every day. We have on the Chamber's website, our COVID-19 website just went live. It's on our front page. So whoever does the link can link to that page too. I think a task force, I think there are moments in the life of a small business when you hit this crisis point and something inside that entrepreneur says, I'm going to make it. And I'm going to make it because I have a great community, I have a great customer base, and I have great employees. And so I think we're going to see this tenacity of the entrepreneur and how we can help them in times like these, both financially. I'm already putting out all kinds of things to buy locally. We're encouraging on our Facebook, if you're doing something creative, post it online. And I don't know if you all realize, but there was a whole bunch of baton walkers that walked. And we put out a thank you for them in respect for our history and things that we represent. So I am open to a task force. The mayor and I have had conversations about helping the small business, whether it's $50 or $100. Some of them just need that little boost, and I think we're all in this together. But I want you to know that our businesses are very resourceful and how they're helping them. And I am taking everything Dr. Trujillo puts on the school's website. We're putting out all kinds of ideas for them to entertain their kids, and we're just sending it out constantly. If you're on our Facebook page, you saw all my posts yesterday, just to give the parents ideas, which gave businesses ideas. So thank you, and I also, part of the task force, stand for questions.
Thank you to all of you. I appreciate that. I think I'm looking to you as the business gurus to cipher that information, right, and give us, and really looking, I'm really interested in hearing from you that application process, what barriers are, that idea of coming up, and you're gonna, it's like all of us making decisions, right? I mean, I heard the word greedy, and I don't think we use the word greedy up here, but please understand that you're asking us to use taxpayer dollars, right, for lots of different things, and we're having to, right now, very quickly, assess what our most vulnerable populations are. And I'm asking you to assess what those most vulnerable businesses are. So if you can help by ciphering through all the information that you're getting both at a local, state, and federal level and making sure that I'm aware of it, and I would like to know that so that I can continue to advocate here on the dais, but also with my state legislators if something different needs to happen. And as far as the child care, I'm just going to take this opportunity. I very much appreciate the businesses because that was one of the things that Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham had really hoped that child care companies don't shut down and whatnot, and being able to access the resources for themselves. So some of the temporary changes that they have in effect are expanding child care for first responders and health providers, enabling family, friends, and neighbors, FFN, to deliver paid child care services, expanding child care access for families, protecting CYFD assistance benefits for families. And I'd like to go in a little more detail as those families that choose to not use the child care services at this point, but that they have a secure spot when, hopefully, when this stuff sort of levels out. And then the ensuring children have access to meals, which we've all sort of talked about here quite a bit today. And so I just want to make sure, and there's some other things, temporary changes affecting childcare and pre-K providers, allowing CYFD-funded pre-K providers to expand playtime for children, ensuring the continuity of payments to providers, paying licensed providers a premium, partnering with public ed department to provide childcare, expediting background checks to help providers cover staffing shortages, coordinating food and cleaning supply delivery, providing daily technical assistance and support. And so with that, I hope that, I know that I went through those pretty quickly, but I'm happy to send that out so you can get that on your website. I know at least Debbie and Carrie's email, and I'll send it out so that they can forward it on to you, but to all your other resources. I think those are going to be really important.
Mr. Mayor and Councilor, I just want to take a stab at one of the questions about the complication through the application. I think any application to a business person is overwhelming, especially in a crisis mode. They do have to go, Joanne, they have to go through a local bank first. So I've been having conversations with some of our local lenders because it's basically a fast track system of the current SBA, but I'm already prepping our businesses in the community that this is coming down the pipe and they need to be prepared. And I also want to say some of our community banks actually have their own programs. And so I'm starting to collect that and put that out to our businesses too. And so there's several pieces of that, but any application can sometimes be overwhelming, but they need to go through their local bank, and then that's the process that makes it a little easier in that regard.
Great. That's good to know. Thank you, Debbie.
If I may, one of the things that I want to make sure that I did not imply in terms of greedy, what was popping through my head was a lot of the social media, if you see people hoarding toilet paper and sanitizer, our businesses are not that. They also recognize that I think the conversation that we're having right now is to see what's coming kind of down the road, because we know that we have vulnerable people here, people who are at risk, who really need that care first. We recognize that, and I think our businesses recognize that. It's just what we're seeing when we look at profit and losses and businesses being able to keep the door, we see that that's an inevitable conversation.
Yeah.
And so I'm grateful that we're able to have that now, knowing that you as a city council are being responsible and taking care of those citizens that need the most right now, but also just to keep us in mind and understanding and really valuing the impact of local businesses here.
I think like all of you, I think said it's going to take all of us together to really, talk about what I have just said. It's not really in my wheelhouse. I'm learning as quickly as I can with some of the other things that I'm involved with, but I'm here to listen, and I'm committed to at least having those conversations with our state legislators, right? And I have some relationships with the governor's office that I can, on a first name basis and a cell phone, right, to say, which I did over the weekend when I said, what are you guys talking? I haven't seen anything out there around childcare, right? For those, we're closing down schools, we're closing down several, you're limiting, right? And some of those places are where kids have a safe haven, basically, and I get concerned about that. And we think this is what's happening, but our child abuse, our neglect, it's gonna skyrocket if we don't find some really innovative ways of handling this. And so I appreciate you all being here and giving me your commentary. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilor Beta Stuvi.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all very much for everything that you're doing to advocate for your communities. I live in a very different district that has a lot of businesses and a lot of small businesses too. As we move forward and we're looking for these partnerships, and they're asking resources, when I direct them to these different resources, I do want to make sure that I'm confident that they're getting accurate information, that they're getting that help that they need, whether or not, if they're a member or not of the chamber. So is that something that you guys can commit to make sure to help all businesses, whether or not to that high level of degree that they need, whether or not they're involved? Okay, so thank you. Just making sure that, they know whether or not, if they have that membership or not, they can go to you guys for help. And that's something I want to make sure to communicate to them as well, that we are all working together for that. So,
Oh, I was just going
go
to
right
say, I think it goes back to Councilor Abeyta-Stuvey, Mayor. It goes back to the old saying, the mayor says it quite often, and I use it quite often, it takes a village. And it doesn't matter. We're standing up for all business, all employees, everyone, to make sure this is our home, this is our community. So that is just, it helps financially for me, but it is not a priority right now. We're all in this together to get through this crisis.
Thank you. Thank you. And commentary on the childcare situation. I am very excited to see services and expanded services. The one item that I think we should be aware of is that even though we may have daycares open, a lot of people don't have that money in their budget for daycare and for that sort of providing. So as we see, a lot of people rely on school for basically that care because they do not have that in their budget. So as we move forward, I think, should just be mindful that those services aren't even an option for a lot of our lower income families that rely on it. And if they are having job insecurity now too, they're not going to be accessing those types of services. So just something to be mindful of. And then I'll say, last one, when you have kids all together, they are petri dishes. And so the thing is, we're supposed to treat it, this is not a snow day, but if you can keep the kids home, if you can keep them isolated, that is what we're trying to do, just to make sure that we are not spreading infection and that we can stop it if it happens in a household with that household. Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Flores?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mayor, Mayor Abeyta-Stuvey. Apropos of what Councilor said, I was at Sam's this morning, and there was one woman, and I counted the kids, 9 kids, and they were all about the same age group, so it looked like a, quote, play date, unquote. And I think it's wonderful under normal circumstances to take the kids to a store, to take them to a bank, to take them. But as Councilor Abeyta-Stuvey said, it's not a snow day. It's not the time to have play dates. And the whole idea is to have isolation. So I just want to let you and your small businesses know all that. No. I just wanted to put it out there just as a anecdotal experience that I had this morning, that yes, people should, and that's why my heart goes out to the children and the parents, because I've been there, done that, a working mom. And but I had a single working mom, but I had the fortune to be able to afford it, and it was very expensive. And so
That's why I said check our privilege, right? Maybe they didn't have any other alternative.
oh yeah. Well, no. I'm not doing a judgmental thing, and I'm not blaming. I'm just saying, no, I'm just saying that we should keep that in mind. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so thank you for your comments, and between your comments and the comments that Marcy said, and it got me thinking, and I'll convey it to our management team. But if I could sum it up like this, the city spends approximately $1 million a day on all of our goods and services that we do. Our budgets, total budget's $400 million, 365 days, we spend about $1 million a day. So if we take a look at our projects that we are going to need to be doing soon or in the future, that's what I think we need to look at and see how that can be transitioned as possible. And if we have to, if there are certain rules that, and of course this is all legal, we have to go through that we can change that would allow to keep Las Cruces working, whether it's from the food industry to the construction of a road, or even just doing some other things that normally we're going to hold off on. Maybe we need to accelerate it. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Thank you. Max?
Max Bauer, CEO of Amador Hospitality LLC. Thank you for all your hard work today and through the last few weeks. I know it's been a lot of late nights and a lot of phone calls. I guess I'll just take the opportunity to give an on the ground update of what's going on downtown as far as businesses are concerned, and in particular hospitality and tourism businesses. We made the decision to go ahead and close yesterday is when we put the announcement out, and we typically are closed Mondays anyway, so we took yesterday's afternoon to have a staff meeting and go ahead and let the staff know that we wouldn't be open all week. We're taking it on a week-by-week basis, given the speed at which things are coming out. And so at this moment, we're closed for the week, and that's being reflected on our social media and in some of the interviews and stuff like that. Our main concern, obviously, is that like a lot of the businesses downtown, it's obviously a new thing that's going on down there. We get a lot of bodies in close proximity, especially later at night. And we don't want to add any fuel to the fire on the massing, if you will, of people. Obviously, we're a full-service restaurant and all that as well, and we're one of I guess we have the benefit in this case of having a big open space in the back. But at this time, just this week, we think that it's prudent just to hold off. But I've been listening all day. I've been here for a while. And I think y'all are on the right track on everything. I just wanted to encourage y'all to continue to follow very closely as it relates to some of the ideas of keeping people working. I agree with a lot of that. However, in this particular case, that's like the last thing you want to do is get people back close together again. And so then you have people crisscrossing the town. Taking things upon themselves to help, and that's fine, but without there being some sort of a check in place on how that's going to get done, you could be defeating the purpose, especially the kids. I mean, it's a tough one, but in this case, from what I've been reading and researching, and I've been on the phone with some people in Santa Fe myself and stuff, and the feds cut the rates basically to zero. That's all in preparation of making sure that we're able to monetize out some of the needs for this crisis across the country. And we're lucky out here in southern New Mexico because we are kind of spread out a little bit, and we're not living all up on top of each other like they are in some of these big cities. My wife and I were just looking. I think they just put San Francisco on a 3-week mandatory lockdown like in the last hour or so. So we don't quite have that problem. We have our own challenges. I do like the idea of figuring out a way to utilize the restaurants as food centers. We do have fully inspected, commercial grade, ready to roll kitchens that can do a lot of things. And we do have staff that can only sit there and watch their kids play video games for so long. And I think at the appropriate time, that's something that we could look at. But as the mayor indicated, and as y'all have indicated, there's got to be a trade-off. Things aren't for free. It's public money. Maybe that's, why do I always got to be the guinea pig for these kind of things? But, maybe I'll pick on Dr. Garcia over there for a little bit. For example, if a business is having a hardship issue as it relates to, say, the utilities, and I'll throw El Paso Electric in there as well. I was doing some quick math on any given month now that we've been in operation for about a year. Our utility costs as it relates to solid waste, gas, water, and electricity runs about $4,500 a month. So $4,500 a month times 12, we're at $59,000. You could take that in a short-term basis and convert that into some sort of a shift wage to bring in the back of the house, in this example, the cooks, and they get a little bit of extra work because, as was indicated, your unemployment benefit's only going to cover so much. This gives you that little bit extra that you might need in the short term, keeps them busy, and also helps get the food out to those that need it. The trade-off is that we're basically getting some sort of a credit from the utility departments or companies in lieu of that labor. So it's a labor problem. It's not just throwing money at it, but it's how do you get something out to take care of people that need the food and also keep the workforce working. And I think that this thing's it's moving awfully fast. I don't know that by the time some of this stuff got put in place that we might not already at least be a little bit more stabilized. I feel like people are starting to take it seriously. However, that doesn't mean we ought to give up on taking a look at this and definitely putting together a task force, figuring out where those weak points are. In this case, maybe it's just fortuitous or whatever, but to have the hospitality industry taking a hit right now in a way is a good thing, to go through this process of figuring out how to put this together, because the next crisis might not be this nationwide thing. It could be more of a localized natural disaster that affects a different segment of the workforce. But we're in that weird spot where we tend to know everybody because everybody comes in and sees us and we know what's going on socially. So our contact point out to other types of business owners and stuff like that is pretty high. We're not just out focusing on construction. We're talking to everybody as they're coming in and out of the doors. So from a social perspective, we have a big reach. And I think it's something where if we work together, that we could maybe come up with a model that at least could be put into play on a short-term basis, and figure out a way to partner up with the city or one of the city's funds in order to get that trade-off of labor and need, and make sure that those funds are being spent where they're supposed to be spent, because that's my main concern, is you can't just throw money at everything. That's really it. Do you all have any questions for me?
Councilor Sword?
Max, did you say you were going to close all week?
We're closed all week. That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
I understand.
The thing is that we didn't want to push it where it's 3 weeks out, because that can really have an effect on the business even more than it already has. I'm in not much of a different boat than Ms. Dickerson is.
Right.
But I think if we just take it week by week, it's possible that, maybe next week, the 50% or the 50-person table will hold, and that will allow us to begin to try things a little more flexibly.
Sure.
And come up with some ideas and ways to do things. Yeah.
Yeah.
But at this point, most of the workforce.
Okay.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah, and just to add to it is, as this was happening so fast, a lot of our workforce, like everybody else's in town, have small children. They're single mothers. There's nobody there. So frankly, they need the time. They got to figure out what they're going to do next. So
I wanted to say to our management staff in the city here, I hope we can keep our city projects going as best or as fast as we can, so that money is pumped into the economy here. That's important, I think, to the city as a whole. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, Councilor, that's what I was trying to get at. If we can look at the projects that we have that, for whatever reason, if we can expedite it, and we may want to, within legal means, change some of the requirements as far as whether we, make sure it's local. Right? If we have to pay a little bit more, there are certain projects we can do on that, and some we can't. But we'll start working on that. Thanks, Max.
okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah. As soon as possible.
Anybody else? Yeah, Nicole? Or, yeah. Oh, you're going to come together? Okay. Okay. Henry, go ahead. Just go ahead. Just state your name, please.
Young, I'm the director of the Las Cruces Gospel Rescue Mission. We've heard a lot of information today. To boil it down into a workable situation is going to be a big task, but I think we have a good start. Some of the things that we have been doing at the mission, and I have spoken to Nicole earlier today, so we're working in conjunction with each other so that we can be as diligent as possible and help not only the city as a whole, but our homeless community. What we have done at the mission, I've changed a few things because I used to let my women and staff eat at a separate time and then my men. I have combined those with someone who is watching over them during meal times. That affords me the time then in between those people eating to clean the entire dining room again, sanitize it, and then we always allow 3 meals a day for the general public, which means anyone who is at the community of hope or homeless on the street who does not have another place to go. We open that for our dining. We serve 3 meals a day, 365 days a year. This past year, I can brag here for a minute, we got one of the highest grades from the health department in the entire city. So we have a clean establishment. And so then after they come in and eat, and we take that meal count, every meal, and we can publicize that for our donors as well as for the city to see. We also then have other services that we provide for those who are not our residents. At a separate time, we provide showers and give out things to them that they may need. For instance, hygiene packs. And sometimes we do run low on things, so we constantly need hygiene items brought in. But we are trying to help mitigate any problems that would be caused by having too many people in the place at one time. Plus, we are separating our core people from the general public. And this is something that we did in the migrant crisis also and managed to keep 2 or 3 balls in the air at one time. Another thing that I would like to point out and ask for the city's help on, and I've kind of brought it up to the mayor previously, but I would like to see some of the indigent funding that the city provides each year to third-party groups such as home health care, nursing units. I will provide a room if the city would like to provide the salary for 2 shifts of those nurses, and they don't have to be registered nurses. All they have to do is look at a patient and determine whether they can be triaged at the mission or transported to the hospital. It would be maybe even more prevalent at this time. But if that was done, now I think the only reason the mayor doesn't like that, I'd be saving the county money as well as the city. But when the fire department has to come out with the paramedics and then the ambulance is right behind them, that's a lot of money that is being spent of public funds. If we had those 2 shifts every day, it would be a lower cost to the public entities than what we are putting out right now. Go ahead. Any questions for me?
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Young, for your commentary and for your work. I'm interested in, you've made mention about this idea before, about the 2 nurses, and that it doesn't really necessarily have to be RNs. But you have the Amador Health Clinic down the street.
That is true.
So
However,
why are you not using it?
We do.
Okay.
Our people go over there all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But if they are very sick, why should they have to walk across the street? Plus, it may be at hours when Amador is not open, and many times they are booked, and the people can't get in even after they go over there.
Okay.
I think it would just be better than having a sick person walk across the street to have the availability right there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you, Henry. Okay, Nicole?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. My name is Nicole Martinez. I'm the director of the Mesilla Valley Community of Hope, and I just wanted to bring you up to date on what we're doing over at the Hope. We are maintaining the same hours, same services, same staff. We've implemented new cleaning regimen, much as everyone else has. But I think two of the things that I really wanted to focus on, even though we are maintaining same hours and services, we have bare bone staff right now. All of the interns that we've had have all been pulled. All of the volunteers are staying home, which is what they need to be doing. So it's been really interesting, but obviously same amount of people that we are serving. The two ways I think that we're going to be really impacted is if this does hit our homeless population, that we're looking at a group of people who are incredibly vulnerable, vulnerable to different types of diseases, malnutrition, food insecurity, mental health issues. And so I think when we think about what are we going to do, how are we going to quarantine, obviously it's a different question than quarantine for people who are housed. So we're trying to think about solutions that we would have. Obviously we would bring city management, Office of Emergency Management into that to talk about what that kind of quarantine would look like in a safe way for either campers or people experiencing homelessness coming into the community of Hope. And then most of all, of course, whatever we do, making sure that we're doing it in a manner that's not demeaning to people that are experiencing homelessness, that it's very low barrier and compassionate. So those are harm reduction models that we're trying to figure out when we do a quarantine like this for people who are typically stigmatized anyway. The other area, as many of you know, I've sent out several emails about my concern when this immediately happened was all the people that aren't going to be able to pay their rent. So people with low income that are struggling, median income, is going to affect a lot of people and their ability to stay housed. And we have very limited resources for homeless prevention funds. And so I anticipate that that's going to be something that we may need to really look at. At this time, I'm really putting my efforts toward federal stimulus packages and trying to put forth effort for that as well as state. But I do anticipate that I may need to come to the council should it become a bigger issue than those entities can assist with. So I think that you're all aware of that, though, that that's a possibility that we may need to talk about how we can meet those needs in the emergency term. But other than that, any questions that you might have, that's really sort of how we're addressing the issues.
I think the same goes to you as well, Nicole. Thanks for all that you do and keep us informed if there's something that's needed. I know we've helped fund in the past, and I'm sure we'll be there again if something's needed. Councilor Bencomo.
Thanks so much, Nicole, for being here and for possibly being the last person to speak. I'm not sure. Thank you. Mayor, I wanted to just, at this point, I'm just going to say what I'm thinking. You had mentioned potentially going back to the Brown Armory Center, trying to figure out a negotiation there. I'm wondering if, I think I didn't go into that building, to be honest with you, but I'm wondering if that could be a place for, so NMSU, when they were talking about quarantining students, they were thinking about opening up a bunch of the little homes that they have that are currently vacant and sticking students in there who needed to be quarantined. I'm wondering if that location could be used similarly for a specific population, like those experiencing homelessness. I'm not sure, right? Like, where can we figure out, how can we figure out where to place? Start thinking about it now, like where are we going to place folks who are experiencing homelessness, who need to be perhaps quarantined?
Thank you. I think it was more so just having it available and ready. You never know if there were people who, regardless, needed to be separated other than, obviously at their home. I mean, it's kind of hard to make them get out of their house, but let's say they had no other place to go or whatever may be the situation. I think that was the main reason for having this available, or at least having it ready, or as a distribution point. I think that, I don't want to say garage, but that area in the back that's kind of open could be used as a distribution point if we needed to get goods and supplies to our elderly and for the children as well, the babies. And, again, things could settle down in a couple of weeks. I mean, as far as the manufacturers, they may step it up and, send in more baby formula, more toilet paper, all that stuff. So I don't know. We'll see.
Also, not that this is helpful now, but I think in the long run, what's happening right now is going to expose how governments could actually be helping people who are in vulnerable situations much easier than we currently say we can.
Okay, we have Councilor Flores and Councilor Vasquez.
Yes, I just want to comment on, quote, housing, unquote, people who have been infected. I think it's a dilemma or an enigma because when you're putting a lot of people who are, and then I don't know, I still haven't gotten read or gotten a clarification on what a presumptive positive is as opposed to a positive that the CDC issues. But my concern is that, say you do have presumptive positives, and then people, homeless or whatever, people who have nowhere else to go, they go there, and perhaps, the presumptive positive proves to not be positive. And also having people and there is that open space that the mayor mentioned, but the rest of it actually is just like any other structure. It's indoors. It's so, I don't know. I'm just putting that out there as just a thought, a food for thought, insofar as what we do in terms of confining it. It just might be, because I agree with Councilor Bencomo. This is exponential, and we saw what happened in Italy, and what happened in Iran, and what happened in Spain, where there was just, and then here already too in New Mexico, fortunately not here locally, but still not very far away. I think we had 17 reported in the morning, and by afternoon now I think we have 22 presumptive. So I think it's going to grow exponentially, and I think we are definitely, but I don't know what the answer is. I'm just putting it out there insofar as to think about confining people and then what happens. It doesn't cure them. So that's just out there. That's my thought. And thank you, Nicole, for everything you do. Thank you. How's JoJo?
She's great. Wondering where I am, I think.
Probably. Mommy's not home. Thank you.
Councilor Vasquez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Nicole, again, for sticking through the whole meeting and for thinking through this and letting a lot of your staff go home. So I've been thinking more about the situation with especially rent payers, right? There's lots of folks who are barely making ends meet or have a very calculated budget to get what they need to get to live independently as an individual or as a single mother or a head of household. And so, thinking about connecting that with what Max said, right, about what if I have to let go of people? What if other businesses, not just restaurants, have to let go of people in the middle of the week or in the middle of the month, right? And so now you're one paycheck off from meeting your budget requirements for your household. And depending on who your landlord is, right, depending on whether you live in an apartment complex, you live in a single-family household that's owned by a property owner, it's managed by a real estate company, those levels of compassion, right, or those levels of negotiation will be drastically different depending on who owns that property. And so I could definitely envision some property owners saying, coronavirus, not my problem, right? You pay the rent or you're out. And so I think in addressing the situation of how do we stop that from happening and the moratorium on evictions that Councilor Bencomo brought up earlier today, I think that's something we really need to be prepared for, because if we do see a significant population of the workforce, especially in the service industry or in the hospitality industry, missing even one paycheck, I don't want to make assumptions, but I think a lot of those folks are going to have to decide what they pay, right? rent or thankfully utilities is not going to be hopefully something they have to deal with in the immediate future. But I think legally we should be looking at, what do we do in 3 weeks or 4 weeks when folks potentially are getting eviction notices posted to their doors. And so I'm sure that it's not a problem unique to Las Cruces. This is going to happen in other cities and other places all around the country. What municipalities do to address that issue, I think, is going to be really important for that population of hardworking people who potentially will start getting eviction notices. And what can we do to make sure that people don't take advantage of that situation? I could even imagine a property owner or landlord saying, "Oh, I've wanted that person out for a long time anyway. Here's my chance," right? And so we don't want that to happen. We don't want people to be discriminated against. So any ideas that you have, or what you're seeing across the country in terms of policies that we can do to stem that would be appreciated. So thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilor.
Any other questions? Okay, Nicole, well, thank you very much for your presentation. I think that's it. Okay, well, thank you very much for showing up and sharing with us your comments. And if there's nothing further, entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion made by Councilor Flores, second by Councilor Sorg, that we adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, we're adjourned at 7:34 p.m. Thank you.